What is up, everybody? Happy Saturday. Happy almost end of the year. So we are here tonight, just a little random get together. We've been talking privately on Twitter, what do you say, formerly known as Twitter, Adam? What's your
Yeah, the
catchphrase?
artist formerly known as Twitter.
There you go. The artist formerly known as Twitter, also known as X or whatever you want to call it nowadays. That thing where everybody gets mad all the time. We've been talking on there. Wanted to kind of get a live stream together with all three of our varying personalities. And I figured it'd be a good topic to talk about kind of the state of the movie industry, the state of Hollywood. It's an interesting time. And so those of us that bathe in this world on a daily basis, and we know all the ins and outs and hear all the articles and go to the theater once a week, there's a lot of things to be worried about. We had 2020 where the movie industry shut down. 2021 and 2022 more so seemed almost like the light at the end of the tunnel, like we're coming back. The movie industry's coming back. And then 2023 has been not that. So anyway, for anybody that doesn't recognize my guest here, I'm sure we all recognize Uncle Sean. So, Sean, do your intro.
Uncle Sean.
Oh,
God.
there's a whole backstory on that too. That's not that interesting, but somehow is stuck. And actually, come to think of it, I came from a wedding. That's why I'm dressed like this. The guy that is like originated the history of that was at it, and I was talking to him. And he's like a grown up now, and at the time it was like him as a middle schooler, intentionally making it sound creepy. And now you've immortalized this thing that this guy did 10 years ago.
Yeah, it
Hundreds
came
of
out
thousands
creepy
of
for
people.
me, but I don't know the backstory, so that helps.
It's all meant to be creepy. That's the whole thing.
My version of the story is not quite as creepy. It's just good old fashioned male ribbing. So you had when we and Sean first started to kind of become friends, we had a group of about 4 or 5 of us that talked regularly. And the name Uncle Sean came up, and Sean made the mistake of like, yeah, I really don't like that name. And I'm like, well, now it's permanent. And so he's lovingly known as Uncle Sean whenever I get a chance to bring it out there.
Like in the original version was this, like I said, this guy that's now in his 20s, married, everything like that. But him in middle school going, "Hey, Uncle Sean," intentionally making it like the most like, please stop doing that in public. What are you doing, man?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. Anyway, just northeast of, just northeast of Uncle Sean, we've got Adam from Adam Does Movies. Adam, tell us about your channel, where we could find you. Why do
And
we
you can, I'm Auntie Adam over here. Yeah, that's what we playfully call me. No, I've been on YouTube for a while too. Just, doing movies, roasting movies, doing some live streams, and just trying to have a fun little side hobby while I pay some of the bills with the regular job. And it's been going well. It's been a good year.
That's awesome. Yes. So anyway, we're going to start
I talk about movies on YouTube as well.
Yeah,
and
once in a
I
while.
have middle schoolers call me Uncle Sean. Respectfully.
Respectfully.
As one does. A totally normal thing to do.
Absolutely. So anyway, our spoiler-filled thoughts on Godzilla Minus One. We'll start with For those that don't get the joke, Adam rose to Twitter prominence here very recently over being the only person on planet Earth, I guess is what the narrative was.
Literally the only person in the world.
You ruined the Rotten Tomatoes.
100%. It had 100% global phenom, and one man rises to defeat Godzilla's perfection.
Like a phoenix from the ashes, I'm reborn anew.
I need somebody to do like a green screen edit of like the -1 like action sequence in the ocean where he's like, raw, and then just have like a cut to Adam like going across the other way.
You shall not pass. The funniest part is it's not like we're talking 300 critics at the time. It was, I think, 40 maybe at the most. So the whole thing was just silly, but yeah.
They waited a little longer to report that 100% before they reported the 9% on Rebel Moon. So I'll give them that.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I might be the one guy that likes that movie. Did you guys get to see it or not?
Not yet, no. I'm waiting on my digital screener, but the Netflix stuff is always so weird because they're like, yeah, it's coming soon. And then sometimes they're like, never mind, you can just watch it on Netflix.
Yeah.
I'm hosting an event in Austin. Like, not my event. I'm hosting the official event here in Austin. So anyone watching happens to be in Austin, if you go to my community tab, you can see it Tuesday night and just drop my name in the group section.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
When does that actually come out for us?
21st.
Okay, the 21st.
Mm-hmm.
So
they moved it up a day so that they could advertise the shit out of moving it up a day.
Clever.
Very clever. All right, a couple super chats we'll get to really quick before we get into the conversation. We got Marcy saying, I want to say Hollywood has always been messy more. Well, to a degree, yes. And they probably always will be to an extent. Jason Carpenter, Cody, Sean, love both of your channels. Well, you should also love Adam's. So his link, familiarize yourself down in the video description. Thoughts on Beverly Hills Cop 4 trailer? Can y'all both do a Beverly Hills Cop movie review series? That's very possible. Just depends on what all is going on. I don't know what month it's coming out. The trailer, it's weird. I'm so guarded with Eddie Murphy stuff because I thought Coming to America looked awesome. I was like, oh, he's back. And I couldn't even finish that movie. The trailer looked good. It hit all the notes that it needed to. When the Axel F score started, it hit the feels. I was like, oh, I'm ready. But I don't know. It's like I'm as cautiously optimistic as cautiously can be.
Well, it's got like two things going against it, right? It has
Netflix and Eddie Murphy.
Netflix logo coming up, exclusive. That's one. And then two, it's your standard like 20 or 30 years later, you know, one more ride situation. And those almost never work out. We'll see though. I'm with you. I thought the trailer was solid, and man, that song is so freaking fire. Yeah, really good.
I don't know. Like I went in pretty skeptical. Like, oh, come on. The trailer in and of itself, it did its job. I was like, that felt right. Like that, the energy's there. I mean, Eddie Murphy looks phenomenal for being in his 60s, and like it felt like I was watching the trailer for a new solid 80s buddy cop movie. And you go, we haven't got one of those in a while. So it was just like, oh, don't get my like the meme Hawkeye, don't give me hope. But I don't know. That was a good trailer. I wouldn't do a review series, but I'm sure I'll do a ranking. And I have one up if you want to know my thoughts on the first three, but I'm sure I'll do the updated ranking, but I doubt I would. Maybe I would review the first one.
Have you guys watched them recently?
I watched them within the last year and a half.
They hold up pretty well. I mean, I loved them when I was a kid, but I haven't watched them in a long time.
I think the first one does. I don't think I've ever been too wild about 2 or 3, but the first one, you watch it and you're like, this guy was so good.
Yeah.
And then you're like, how does he keep doing all these crappy family
comedies
for 25 years?
Yeah, and well, the crazy thing about Beverly Hills Cop 4 too is that this thing has gone through like 6 different versions just since we've been on YouTube. Like there was supposed to be a TV series at one point that was going to focus on his son, and he was going to be
and
like
they shot it. There's a pilot out there too.
And that's what's crazy to me is because the last recorded quote that I saw on Eddie Murphy's behalf is he said, "I'm not going to do the 4th one until I get a good script." And it's like, can you answer for the last 20 years of your career then, Eddie? Like, I love you, but what the fuck? And so I don't know. I hope. I
got a copy of Dave sitting over here, Eddie Murphy. What are your thoughts on that?
I love classic Eddie Murphy, like the Golden Child, the 80s, even some of the 90s stuff, like Metro, I think is a really underrated movie. And I'm rooting for it. I hope it's awesome, but I have no reason to believe it will be.
Right.
Yeah, so the pilot that with the TV show was written by Sean Ryan of The Shield.
Yeah.
And it was directed by Barry Sonnenfeld of Men in Black and Addams Family. That was the talent that did this pilot 10 years ago, and no one's ever seen it.
It's insane.
That's incredible.
Maybe it'll be like on a maybe if this hits, there'll be like a side thing going on where Netflix will Cobra Kai it.
You hear what these 3 guys are talking about over on YouTube? Get this out the door. And they pull it out. Yeah. We got a hit on our hands here, people.
There we go. Marcy said, Sean's looking good today, as always, but with a suit.
So this is the attire I purchased because I taught a marketing class at a local university a couple weeks back. So bought this new, I wanted to have some nice professor drip to use the language of the kiddies. And then I came from a wedding. So
Dr. Sean.
How many of you kids know what Bitcoin is? For the next hour, I'm going to be telling you about Bitcoin and how to invest. I assume that's what your lecture was on?
Not far off.
Okay. NFTs, are those still a thing? NFTs?
If you guys want to succeed, rage clicks. Point 1.
That's right.
It's the holidays, so here's a gift for you, Cody. Cheers from Adam's channel. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that, Metaborn. I'm assuming you know You know Metaborn there, Adam?
I've never heard of him before in my life. No.
Oh, Lord.
I'm joking. Yes. Thank you, Metaborn.
Tony Chappie, speaking of MegaCon, thoughts on the current state of Disney? Where do you guys think Disney should now? Well, that'll kind of get wrapped up in the conversation as we go on, because Disney's going to be one of the bigger studios of concern, I imagine.
Yes. We'll if you don't know Tony, we met him at MegaCon.
Twice.
Yeah, twice now. I guess, we're both there both years.
Best and worst A24 horror films. I can't do that off the top of my head, and we're going to try to stay on topic. I can tell you that the best one...
Man is the worst.
That's up there for me for sure. Yeah. Best, in my opinion, is X. X is the one that I've loved the most, but I really enjoyed Talk to Me as well.
I really liked X as well, and Talk to Me. I agree with you.
Cody, thoughts on John Carpenter saying Halloween Kills is favorite of the trilogy? I don't really care, to be honest with you. I mean, I would need. Did you not like Halloween
Kills?
Huh?
Did you not like Halloween Kills?
That's my least favorite. I didn't hate it. But that's my least favorite of those three. But I would want, if there was a longer expanded explanation, but John Carpenter is pretty notorious for just saying the most irreverent thing, and it's hilarious. So it's just like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. These sequels all suck, but they give me a paycheck. So that when you match that with I like that one, it doesn't really mean anything to me. All right, guys. So nonetheless, we'll get cracking on the topic. So the year of 2023 has been a weird year for movies. You know, I think Sean has said it quite a few times on his channel, the year of the flopbusters. We had the writer strike. We had the actor strike. We've had the rise of AI. We've had all kinds of crazy stuff. So I guess just to start off, just to go from anywhere, I'll kick it over to Adam. We'll just go, well, maybe counterclockwise. I can never get this right. Adam, what's a concern that you have, at least that's popped up prominently over the past year regarding the movie industry?
I do think a big concern, especially with what you just said, the rise of AI, is going to be laziness and greed. And we've seen maybe, it's funny you say that, but it's almost like they're already learning a lesson, or maybe they should be learning a lesson because of these huge flops from a financial standpoint, with the Marvels tanking and Ant-Man not doing as well as it should. And Disney specifically seeing that, maybe we should put a little bit of effort in, because Wish, I think, also kind of flopped if I got my numbers right.
Oh, yeah.
And that movie genuinely seems like it was built with AI. It was such a lazy, terrible script. And that is my big concern moving into 2024, is we're going to get more of these just super quick, easy cash grabs from major properties. They're going to keep dusting off our Axel Foleys and our Indiana Joneses. And, it's just never going to end until inevitably it just gets crappier on streaming, which I think is the other big problem, is so many of the studios are now coming from Amazon, coming from Netflix, and coming from Apple. They're making movies, but I have almost never seen a movie from those streaming services and thought, now this is a picture. This is a great movie. It's always like, it was okay at best. It's never a wow moment. And I think that's a major problem. It's churn and burn for the streaming services. And then the big blockbuster movies might just kind of go away altogether. And that kind of hurts, I think. But
it feels like that in particular, it got real obvious this year, but just studios throwing $200-300 million at clearly mediocre scripts that are tied to an IP or that have movie stars. And there's two different versions of it, but from March 1st until the middle of August, every single week a new big franchise movie came out.
It was insane this year.
Yeah.
And how many of those were actually on a memorable film? I'm a sucker for those ones. I eat it up. I'm too kind. But how many of those are oh man, wow, Transformers Rise of the Beast, that was a really standout. So many of them just forgettable with gigantic budgets. And then even the weirder version of those Ghosted, with Heart of Stone,
right?
Get into last year, Red Notice, those streaming movies that have a couple movie stars and they are legitimately optimized for the way people watch on streaming. And so it's actually not far off from saying that they were AI generated, because they use AI to study how do people interact. And it's movies that are just interesting enough that when someone's laying on their couch, that they'll click on it and then optimized to make people not click away, and then you forget it the next day.
Mhm.
There's just nothing memorable about it, and you're like, oh yeah, like Gal had a movie in August. Oh yeah, Chris Evans, Anna de Armas. There's like multiple movies on Netflix from Ryan Reynolds, and you forget them instantly.
To that point, like I made a Twitter post a couple of weeks ago. Getting ready for all these end of the year lists. I started to compile the list of all the movies that I've seen in the last calendar year. Last year, I kind of did it throughout the year. This year, I was a little sloppier with it, but I started just dumping in all the movies that I ranked on my, January, February, March ranked, and some other ones from Fantastic Fest. And I got to the end of it, and it said that at the beginning of December, I had watched 106 new movies in 2023.
It's a lot of movies.
And I don't know what was more shocking, the fact that I watched 106 movies in a calendar year with a month ago, or that if you put a gun to my head without the computer in front of me, I don't know if I could have named 20 of them.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm like, those were that was this year. Like you asked me to name movies from this year. I'm going to go to my top 10 and I'm going to go to my bottom 5. And those are the only ones that are going to like actually stick in my memory. And it's just been a weird year like that. And I remember when the year started, we had a number of conversations. I think me and Sean, where it's just like, man, this is going to be a wild year. Like there's just no breaks. Every weekend is one, if not two major movies. And the problem that compounded that was so many movies this year fell into like that 2.5 to 3.5 star range for me, to where they were like just memorable and just unmemorable enough to where by the next weekend I had forgotten everything about them.
Right.
And I had to go back and watch like reviews of mine so many times when I would go to do these like March ranked. I'm like, wait a minute, what the hell did I say about this? And it was just a really funky year, to where last year, like I remember horror specifically, like was a big standout year for horror, where there was just so many of these awesome movies that stood out. This year was a really good year for action, but comic book movies, especially blockbusters in general, was just like, dude, like how is Indiana Jones, the first Indiana Jones movie that we've had in what, like 15 years, a movie that I forgot in days?
Like my wife she was out of town when it came out, so I saw it twice in the theater. My wife, like, how many times have we watched Last Crusade since being like every year, a couple times per year? If they play at a local theater, we go watch them. She has not seen it yet. Now, some of that she's nervous, like, is it going to ruin the franchise? Some of it's that, but like also a new Indiana Jones movie, and she's like,
Well, yeah, I think Disney is the biggest, obviously, the culprit here, but a lot of these studios are doing it. I think movies have just been kind of devalued in general the last few years. And again, kind of because of streaming, because of the rush to get movies out constantly, that, as you guys said, there's so many big movies that came out this year that it's overwhelming to the point where you just don't care about any of them almost at all. It should have been a big deal that an Indiana Jones movie came out. It was always a big deal when an X-Men movie came out to me. But now I really don't care about any of them. And I'm a movie guy, so it's just sad. And a lot of people now don't even watch movies like we probably do. They sit on their phones half the movies at home on their couch. They get up and walk away while the movie's still playing in the background. These studios know this, and so they're going more like, how about we just make the movie longer so it stays on longer, even though it probably would have been an okay 90-minute movie. Let's make it 2.5, 3 hours and just really keep them on the service, because they're not really watching. It's a problem for me. It's a big problem.
I've noticed the bloated runtimes a lot over the past 2 years, especially. I don't know if I've felt it more just because I've actively been watching more movies since going full time or what, but like the last 2 years, once I get into that like end of November, beginning of December thing, where all of a sudden they're dumping all the Oscar bait movies, and it's like every movie that's coming out, I look at the runtime and I'm like, well, there's my entire evening. And like Hunger Games, I like the Hunger Games movies. I looked up the runtime, said almost 3 hours, and I was like, I'll wait. And I hate being that way, because some of my favorite movies of all time are 2.5, 3 hours long. But it's just like, it just gets exhausting experiencing movies like that so much, like Killers of the Flower Moon and Napoleon and all these things. And even movies like The Holdovers, which was a really enjoyable movie, but I still was sitting there like, this need to be 2 hours and 20 minutes long. Like it feels like I miss the era of movies like Uncle Buck and Tommy Boy, where you would sit down, brisk 90 minutes while you're eating dinner, and then you can move on and do other things. And nowadays it's like you got to invest your evening to watch a movie.
Right.
I used to go to the movies at like a mid-afternoon, 3:00, and you'd get out after the movie, and that sun would hit you. You'd be like, like a vampire.
Yeah.
Now when I do that same thing, it's like the dead of night. There's like one person wandering around.
That's like so many of the movies are that long, and most of them at press screenings that are at the opposite end of town. You're supposed to be there 30 minutes early, and then afterwards writing notes. So it's like a 3.5 hour movie. Show up an hour early, stay late, drive back. So it turns out like 5-6 hours. And then I went to go see like Thanksgiving, the night it opened, at that theater that's 10 minutes from my house. Movie's 90 minutes long. And I was like back to my house in 2 hours. And I was like, well, this is an A+ film simply because I did it.
I know. My wife did that actually recently. I came home after going to a movie. She's like, did you not see the movie? Why are you back? I'm like, no, it was short. It was short.
It was.
I embraced them all. We all cried and hugged. The whole family gathered around. Like, it's happening. We're getting back to 90 minutes.
I've had my wife text me before where I'm in the theater, and she's like, "Can you pick this up on the way home?" or "Where are you?" or something. And I'm like, "Honey, they're still killing Native Americans. I'm like an hour and a half into this
Your
thing.
son is graduating college right now.
De Niro hasn't even shown up yet. I don't know when I'm going to be home."
Yeah, I've had that debate with people on Twitter so many times where people are like, doesn't matter how long the movie is, it matters the pacing. It's like, you're missing the point. Right?
Yes.
You're utterly missing the point. That I know that. Like, I understand that, like, but it feels like so many more movies are just longer and of more and more genres. I mean, even this year, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is the longest animated film Hollywood has ever put out.
You can feel it.
And like you can, there's reasons it's the longest. It's trying to be epic. Gotcha. But when every studio's doing that, everyone is kind of doing these longer and longer movies. It's so refreshing to just find a movie under 2 hours. Like only an hour and 50 minutes. Oh, wow. A nice brisk film. And for the longest time, an hour and 40 minutes was kind of that was kind of standard for action and comedy movies for decades.
I was so happy when I saw The Marvels was an hour 45. I'm like, because I didn't care about that movie. And I thought, well, at least it's going to be short. And you know what? That helped it so much. I remember watching Jet Li's The One. I always bring this up in theaters. That movie is not good, but it's like 85 minutes long. So it's such a fun, easy watch. I watched it like a year or so back with my son, and he's like, "This movie's awesome." I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's like Red Bull the movie. It's in and out before you know it." Most movies aren't that great, but if you can keep them moving quick, it's like getting some McDonald's. You know, you just have a nice crappy lunch and you're on with your day, and it's entertainment.
The way my October worked out is I did a Martin Scorsese movie ranking, followed immediately by a 31 on 31, and the 31 on 31 was like intentionally like Hellraiser, Saw, but it went from like 3-hour prestige Scorsese dramas to like schlocky 85-minute long Hellraiser movies. So it probably helped those movies because it was like I could watch 3 of them in an hour versus watching Silence.
Right, yeah.
And so it's like, okay, that's it. At least they're doing this.
Know your role, movie. Know your role and stay in that lane.
Yeah, it makes it really hard too because like I very rarely can watch a movie at home with my wife because it's not really her attention span is that she gets tired late at night, and I don't like watching movies while my kids are awake because you might as well not even have the TV on at that point. And so, you know, we're talking like 8:30 at night before I can even click play if I'm lucky. And there's so many movies I want to show her, but I'm like, fuck, this will be on until 12:30. This will be on, and it's makes it tough. And the rewatch value, which always plays really high when I rank a movie, it has been gone a lot. Like the 2 that I named there, just 2 examples of movies that I watch probably 2-3 times a year sometimes, and they're easily consumable, but they're great. And so that's also been something that I think it's scared a lot of people away from the theaters because, like theater, the theater attendance is one that I have on my list for concerns for the movie industry. And I think that there's been, just the quality of the movies, the length of the movies has certainly scared a lot of people away where they're more prone to just wait. Disney has pretty much shot themselves in the foot in regards to Pixar movies because they've trained everybody, just wait a month and it's free, free with your subscription. And so many other movies, like that's one of the most common things that I get. If it's not like a 5 out of 5, you got to see it now. Most common comment I get, I'll wait for streaming because people don't want to go out. They don't want to spend $13 a person, buy popcorn. If it's a long movie,
insanely
invest your
expensive.
entire night.
It's insanely expensive.
Yeah. And the thing that always kind of gets brought up too is the argument when we talk about longer movies is it's at home. You can press pause. You can go to the bathroom. You can get something to drink that you don't have to pay for. And that does make for an easier experience when you're watching something like Killers of the Flower Moon. And they always throw something like Avengers Endgame as the counterpoint. Like, you didn't get up during that. It's like, because it was fucking exciting the entire time. It's not the same type of movie. It's like a sporting event.
There's like 19 movies built to that too, right? It was a ridiculous amount. And that actually brings up, I think, the point that I'd like to drive, which is, you got to do event movies basically now in order to get people to really turn out, especially if they cost a lot. Taylor Swift's, I don't call it a movie. It's unfair to call it a movie because I had to pay for a concert ticket at $22. So I'm not calling it a movie, but that's the type of movie that drew a huge crowd because it's T Swift and they're going to go see that. You have the Barbenheimer thing, which was a massive, big event that people were doing both movies back to back. Obviously, Mario's just Illumination. Illumination really is the playbook I think that Disney should go after again and be like, hey, look, 90-minute movie, super colorful, basic as shit. That's what turns people
songs,
out.
Dancing, fart jokes.
I mean, honestly, like Disney could just maybe say, hey, maybe once in a while we do one of these to kind of get our piggy bank full again, and then we'll make something else that's a little bit more salty or something. I don't know, saucy.
Something I think they need to do too is that like it's been way too long since the movie industry, the theater industry specifically, has done any kind of innovation to their experience. Like a lot of us film nerds that just love the theatrical experience, like we can articulate why the theater is sacred. But for most people, there's not really that much of a difference, or at least they can't articulate why it's not enough of a difference to pay the money. But when you go to the movies, it's the same. It's popcorn, candy, slushies. The only innovation that I've seen over the last 15 years is reclining seats and assigned seating, which is awesome. But I feel like that's another thing that they need to kind of focus on. I did a video earlier on this year about how to get people back into the movies. And that was one that I just feel like there should be some innovation between the studios and the theaters of like, offer some premium food. Like I love when I go to Austin with Sean and we go to the Fantastic Fest and I get to experience the Alamo Draft House for 9 days. Because to me, that's like the pinnacle of theater that I've been in, where they tell you, shut the fuck up, put your phone away, or we will kick you out, which more places need to do that. Number one, you can order food. It's all pretty premium stuff. It's literally a restaurant. And like, that's something that I feel like would draw a lot more people out versus hopefully the popcorn's not stale, and that's about the best you can offer. And even kind of going into physical media, with that kind of being a bit of a declining, dying industry there, where I felt for a while there could have been some kind of innovation there, the way that they do with digital copies, to where if you go to a theater, if you buy a premium ticket, you can walk home with a digital copy code or something to draw people into the theater and you can get both experiences. The way that Vudu used to do it, where you would buy the 4K Blu-ray and then you would get the digital code while you wait for it to be shipped, and things like that, I feel like would draw people in. But there just seems to be no movement on, well, what can we do to make things better? It's just like, well, it worked back in the 70s, so we'll just keep doing it.
Yeah, you might need to take off one of your requirements, Cody, for how you review, because I recently thought about this myself. I don't know if people, especially younger people, give a shit about replaying a movie ever. I think that day is kind of gone. I mean, we grew up in the era where you were burning the tapes out, watching something over and over. I can quote most of Die Hard from front to back, but new generations don't care about rewatching things, it seems like, or at least most people that I've come in contact with don't rewatch things anymore. They're excited for what's new, or they have YouTube, they have Twitch, they have all these things now. It's just not a thing. It's done.
Well, you get into the era of so many choices and options where when we were growing up, you did not have on-demand television. You
Whatever
obviously had
VHS's
streaming.
mom and dad had,
Yeah,
that was
whatever,
your library.
It's just a different game now.
And just a wildly different world of, even if you had no pay streaming services, there's still the endless supply of YouTube.
Yeah.
There's Tubi. There's all of these free options if you pay for nothing. And if you play for any streaming service, if anyone can rewind back to 1999, how mind-blowing it would be to have access to that many movies and TV shows on demand in high definition, like right in your house. And we're like, oh, they want to charge $15 for this, is outrageous. It's still in my mind, like, oh, there's so many things on there that we're so spoiled by it. But then you think, modern day kids raised on, there's always something new.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Meanwhile, 12-year-old Adam's waiting for Disney to open their fucking vault so I can get my hands on Beauty and the Beast on VHS.
Yeah. Right,
you know?
exactly. Like that era of the vault. That they would only release their movies to buy in windows of time. So if you didn't buy it then, you'd have to go rent it to see that movie. That is so wildly different from the on-demand world that we're in now.
It's like the Fortnite skins. They release the skins once in a while, and it's like it's going back into the vault.
Yeah, it's very
for
hard.
You young viewers, that analogy he just used. That's really important. That's what Disney movies were like until recently.
Disney was like Fortnite.
And you see all the little equations and the math.
Is that why there's Disney characters in Fortnite too?
Yeah, I can't articulate to my kids what it used to be like on Friday night when a new movie would hit and you would have to rush after work or after school to get to the video store to find that all of them were sold out. And you're like, son of a bitch, my weekend is shot. And nowadays, click, there it is.
Yeah.
And there's a beauty and a curse to it. So like my kids, they're kind of the ultimate example of what you were talking about, where there's certain things that they rewatch quite a bit. They have their favorites that, like most kids do, they just churn it on repeat to a degree, especially my 7-year-old. But it's not like when I was a kid, when you had that limited library of VHS tapes that dad had, and that was your world. If he didn't have it, that movie didn't exist. That's about pretty much how it felt. Yep. And so many of my answers, even though I've been watching movies, long after VHS has been archaic, that's why a lot of my answers are like, how have you never seen this classic movie? Because my dad didn't own it when I was 4.
Right.
And so back in the day when you had that versus nowadays, to where, I always had a drive to check out something new. It's like, okay, I've watched Nightmare on Elm Street 4 enough. Let's see what Phantasm is. Like I would just pull, what's the next VHS tape? And you would buy or rent it based off of how cool the cover was, things like that. And nowadays, I catch my kids they'll be on HBO Max or Peacock or Hulu or whatever, and just pick something random, just a completely unemotional pick. Like I don't know what the hell this is. Play.
Because they're probably not even going to fully watch it like we did. They're going to be fucking around on their Nintendo Switch. And
not only that, it's so hard for me, the movie guy, the in-house movie guy, to guide their movie choices. Like, no, you need to watch this. You need to build out, your movie repertoire with this. I just find out later on that they watched something. Like, I'll never forget, I came home from the movie theater or something, and my 13-year-old girl is sitting on the couch, and she's like, yeah, I watched this horror movie today with a clown. And I was like, oh, It? And she goes, no. And I was like, did you watch Terrifier? And she goes, the second one. And I was like, oh my God. It's just there. It's just there. And so I'm like, I really would have liked to have a conversation before that happened, but I guess we'll discuss it now. So unpack Terrifier 2 for me. What did you think of that bedroom scene?
My daughter is going through, and it was actually my idea because I was talking to a buddy, and Lost got brought up. I don't know if you remember the TV experience that was Lost back in the day, but I was like hardcore for a couple years until it got somewhere in season 3, and I just kind of stood up and I said, yep, they don't have a fucking clue what they're doing on this show. These writers are just making it all up. But then I hate watched most of the rest of it. Anyway, I brought it to my daughter because I'm just curious what she would think of the show. So I said, hey, maybe you should try watching Lost. And she's in the honeymoon phase right now, where every day she's like, Dad, there's a polar bear on the island. Dad, what is this machine going on? And every time just like biting my lip, like, maybe don't get too invested in the polar bear stuff. Maybe don't focus on this angle. But it's just funny watching her. It's such a high right now with the show.
It got
That's how I
canceled
feel
after the first season. It just ended after the first season. We never got an answer to any of that.
She's at the hatch right now. What's in the hatch?
Yeah. That's how I feel every time I recommend every time I recommend Dexter to somebody. They're like, dude, the Trinity Killer's crazy. I'm like,
that's the last season.
Enjoy the ride.
That's the last season.
Yep, exactly. Oh man. So like theater attendance and physical media, like those are the two of the ones that have always been pretty sacred to me. I mean, I don't know if you can see too much of it, like a massive amount of Blu-rays back there. And I still buy them, not quite as crazy as I used to be, but it's kind of a bummer when you think of like Best Buy is not going to be selling Blu-rays anymore. And like I've noticed the section just progressively gets shittier and smaller over the last 5 years. And
there's just a janitor back there. He's like, I haven't seen a person.
They don't even bother to light that section of the store anymore.
It's just Oppenheimer 4K discs back there. That's all they carry.
Yeah. And like for me, like it's not just a collector thing. Like for me, it's almost like preserving history.
Yeah.
It's like I have all my favorite things back there. I even have some things that aren't my favorites because that's part of the journey. We'll get into that later as well.
You got Battlefield Earth back there? You got a copy of Battlefield Earth?
No. Never seen that one.
Well, one of us does.
Oh, wow.
One of us does.
That's an event right there.
You should check that one out.
Epic cinema that feels something special. And if you think maybe your TV is crooked the whole time, no, that was the camera was crooked the whole time. Like their tripod was broken.
And if you think Travolta's maybe hamming it up a lot, that's actually what's happening.
Yeah, I do have the Fanatic. Speaking of hamming up Travolta.
Wow, that's
Limp Bizkit, gotta love it.
I celebrate Fred Durst's entire catalog. To your point, before we move on from theaters, though, it sounds like you guys maybe have better movie theaters by you. I in South Carolina have access to 2 Regals. Regal I'd never been to previously before moving out here. It might be the worst theater chain on the planet so far from what I've experienced.
Nice.
30 full minutes of trailers and commercials mixed in with the trailers. So I'll just get like a random M&M commercial that's not funny.
Yeah, we get that one.
It's
with
insane.
The rocket. They're like they're going to shoot them off on the rocket or something like that.
Yeah, it's terrible. But to your point about maybe offering something special for going to the theaters, how about maybe exclusive movie trailers, kind of like how it used to be back in our day?
Oh, I miss those so much.
You would not see a trailer unless you went to the theater, and I was pissed if we were late for a movie because I missed my favorite part.
I thought about that when I watched the Beverly Hills Cop trailer. Like I just remember the days where you'd be at a theater and they would tease you with what it is. You just see these random shots. All of a sudden, you're like, no way, another one. I missed that so much, man. That was almost the best part of the movie experience because you would see a new Matrix was coming out or something you didn't even know. And that you'd be psyched about that. Then you'd watch the movie and then you'd leave. And the first thing you're talking about is, there's a new
trailer.
Yeah. Nowadays, it's nothing. It's just, we know days in advance before it happens usually.
Sometimes the trailer's like the trailer teaser. What you saw is the old one.
Well, that's what's somewhat fun if you go like for the packed theater, but normies are there.
Yeah.
Like they'll start playing the trailer that like for us, like we've already done 10 videos
4 weeks
talking
old
about it. Yeah. And like it was like the new Ghostbusters trailer kind of played it out as New York City and things are being frozen. And then the camera pans up and you realize it's Ghostbusters. Mm-hmm. So for all of us dummies that watched it on the internet, that doesn't work because I clicked on Ghostbusters trailer. But in the theater, you hear people like, oh, they're doing another one. Oh, yeah, I kind of like the one. Or I wasn't sure, but this maybe they're back in New York. But you can hear the chatter in the room of people that actually had the proper experience of the surprise. Oh, a new one of these. And Planet of the Apes, that was another one where it's like, what's going on here? And then you see a talking orangutan and people are like, oh, another Planet of the Apes. I liked the last one.
Some woman over there is like, is that the second Planet of the Apes movie? Or which one are we on, Gerald? And you're just biting your tongue like, no, this is a different...
Jungle Book 2?
How do you not know this, guys? It's the new trilogy coming after the last trilogy. It's the sequel trilogy to the prequel trilogy. Come on now, that's a reimagining.
Is that Baloo? Yeah.
Jungle Book 2?
Outside of the trailer stuff, also I have a Regal pass, and I know they have the AMC pass and stuff, and it's $22 a month for a la carte, as many movies as you want. I was at Wonka, and this is the full magical theater experience, which we've all had. There's a dude snoring for half of the movie, loudly snoring, and there's only like 8 of us in there, so it's just and I'm just thinking, yep, this is where we're at now, because people treat the theater like a second home where they can just take naps and have a full buffet table of food they brought from God knows where. It sucks. And
how often would you say you get one of those bad theater experiences? Because that's certainly something that's a part of it too, that's scared a lot of people away to where they just don't want to deal with it anymore.
I would say 50. No, I'd say probably 70% of the time now when I go to the movies.
Wow.
It ranges from just people on their phones, which now is just kind of baked into the recipe, and I just move seats at that point. It's not worth yelling at people anymore, because
I do that famous that move where I put my shoe up and try to block the screen.
I try, you try
rows
to
in front of
put
me,
an arm up and kind of like shield it, but it's there. That's almost worse. It's like swimming in the ocean. A shark's by you, but you can't see it. It's like, this isn't working. So I'll just like straight up move to a different spot. My Regal also has like a light that flickers in one of the theaters, and every time I pick my seat, it's right under that light. It's like I have a good idea all the time.
I feel lucky. I don't know. Some of it's just because I'm at press screenings. But also I think because Austin is where Alamo Drafthouse came from, I think just the culture of movie going in Austin is probably a little bit better than other places. Because I hear you guys tell stories of like just random, every month you have a story of just something that it's like, oh yeah, that's right. Going to the theater can suck. It can just be really awful. And I just don't think you have as many, like, I don't have nearly as many just overt jerk stories. And the ones I do have, they're almost always January opening night horror movies.
Oh, those are the worst.
Why are horror people so awful?
It's the teenage crowd.
Okay.
I had that during The Nun too. Any PG-13 mid-budget generic as fuck horror movie that's going to appeal to all of the kids out on their first and second dates, those are always the worst theater experiences for me. And that's for whatever reason. It sucks because I go to so many horror films. There's so many of those throughout the year where it's just like, oh yeah, like as soon as they walk in, you just feel it. You're like, oh,
the energy. The energy. That's
the obnoxious
movie.
The obnoxious 16-year-old that thinks that everything he says is the funniest thing on earth, and he's really trying to impress the girl with him, and so he's like, those types. Like, luckily for me, like 70%, I feel really bad for you. That's pretty horrible. But for me, I would say I'm at the theater on average every week, every Thursday, at least 3 times a week on a slow month. I'd say probably 6 times a year I have a genuinely bad experience.
Wow.
Most of them I can alleviate by moving seats. If I have somebody that just won't shut up, I can just usually go to another section of the theater. There's times where it's ridiculous. Like the worst one that I had in recent memory was Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and I had it on both sides of me. I had stupid in stereo. So I had a dude on the right of me that answered his phone twice, and like full conversation. Hey, what's up? Just full conversation. Like once is already like people have been shot for less, and then you have a second time where it's just like, oh wow, you really just suck. And then to the left of me was a woman with like a 7-year-old kid. I get it. It's a Marvel movie. Wakanda Forever is probably the least appealing movie to take a young kid to for the Marvel movies. And so he was obviously bored. I get it. I'm a dad, but he was, fidgety and talkative or whatever. I can tolerate that enough. And then she hands him her phone to play games on it and lets him play it with the sound on.
Yeah, of course.
So just, and I'm like,
that's just the thing that people do now in public everywhere. At the hospital,
bring kids with tablets.
Or themselves. Like there was a 60-year-old dude with a phone and he had max volume watching some TikTok shit or something on repeat. So it's just the same song for a half hour. And the staff at the hospital was just giving this guy looks, but I guess they couldn't say something for some reason. And I was losing it. People
are just wild. Some of that stuff. I don't like, it's kind of a silly thing to say given what we do, but like I don't really like attention in public like that.
Mhm.
If I'm sitting there, I don't want everyone to know what I'm watching. I specifically like that is awkward to me.
Yeah.
So when you have someone sit down and like just loud as can be, like on planes recently, people like you're on a plane, so it's loud. You're like, well, I got to turn this up so I can hear it. You're surrounded by people. You're traveling. You're not even watching it with the person next to you. So you are blaring as loud as your device can. Whatever random.
I mean, I blame iPhone for getting rid of that headphone jack. You know, a lot of people don't have those adapters and know to get them. I mean, for crying out loud, get some headphones. It's not hard. I don't understand.
Buy AirPods, you fucking peasant.
It's just crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. People have always been that way, and it just fascinates me. As much as I get angry at them and I just stare at them, like I just try to imagine their childhood. Like what created you? What went wrong? Yeah. And I think 2020 and COVID just made it worse to where people got so miserable being confined in their house that now they just treat everywhere like their living room.
Exactly.
And it just blows my mind where like I'm probably on the stricter end, especially with my kids. When I take them to the theater, like I always have a talk with my 7-year-old, and Sean will probably laugh because he knows how rambunctious she is, where I'm just like, okay, we're going to see this movie. You're going to shut the hell up.
Yeah.
We're not going to go to the bathroom every 5 minutes. You're not going to ask questions. And like all these crazy, I had to like give her the talk because I know that she very much is just like, hey, yeah, woo, nobody else is here but me. And especially
same thing with my kids. You know?
Yeah, the parent side of things, people just like, whatever, I'm not going to bother. And that's what kills me, where I'm like, I can't get mad at a 7-year-old for being a 7-year-old, but I can absolutely despise you for not being a parent.
You can despise the parent for letting his kid run up and down the aisle yelling and screaming for 20 minutes straight. Yeah.
So the weird thing that I experience is, so like with press screenings, over 50% of them, they want to fill up all the seats. So then they give out press passes to the public. And generally speaking, the people that pick those up, they just want a free movie for them. They want free entertainment for the family. So it doesn't matter what the movie is. We're watching. The funniest one was Atomic Blonde.
Right.
Which R-rated action, language.
Ton of sex.
Theron, she's like, takes a naked ice bath after every fight scene. And there's like all these families and kids in it. And behind me, someone has their under 2-year-old that at one point in time starts crying for like 20 minutes, like 10 minutes straight, just crying. So my buddy that I'm there with in the middle
not another
of the movie,
ice bath scene.
What's she doing, Daddy? But my friend stands up in the middle of the movie, turns around, points at the lady, and goes, "Get that baby out of here!" You bet it. Vincent did this. Get that baby out of here.
There's still some heroes.
And you hear people like, yeah, yes. And then we get back to her, shooting people in the face and taking ice baths.
Yeah. There's always the one person that speaks out that becomes the hero of the room. The best one I ever had was it was the second time I saw The Last Jedi, because I couldn't process it the first time I saw it. I was like, that couldn't have been what I just saw. I saw the wrong cut. So I went the next day to see it again, packed theater. And I'm talking about like, as soon as the opening crawl, like, like we didn't even get to that 7th note. And there was a guy in like the 3rd row, like you to see his cell phone go up, and this dude goes, "Hey, turn your cell phone off. You're watching Star Wars." Bald guy, 3rd row. And everybody was just like,
like he's playing a game of Clue. Guess who?
Pointed him right at, and you just see the phone go. That's all it took. It was hilarious. I was like, oh, that's man, great. I need you in every movie that I go and see.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, I'm not here for the movie. I'm here to just kind of keep people in check.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Oh, man.
I had one where someone called me out. It's like the trailers are still playing.
Mm-hmm.
It might have even been the ads.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's very early, and like I'm on my phone, and this guy goes, "Hey man, is that the new iPhone?" I was like, "No, it's about €1." "I don't care. We're at the movies. Put your phone up." Like, I respect the energy, but the movie has not started. Like,
That's fantastic.
I love the trailers too, but the lights haven't even dimmed yet, buddy. Like I'm not the problem.
That guy was already upset earlier that day, and you were the final trigger.
You need to get up and walk over and just hug him.
Yep.
Like it'll be okay.
Is that the
Okay.
iPhone 5? No, it's the 4. I don't care. Put it up. Why do I even see your phone at the movies?
I do love how he laid himself up. That's fantastic.
Oh, what do you
You
got there,
sound like an
friend?
Android user.
What do you got
It
over there,
was
buddy?
something. It was literally he did something like that was like to be disarming, like smoothly
yeah.
like, oh yeah, it's actually I don't care.
It doesn't matter what you think.
I love how it lasts. If it would have lasted for like 4 minutes, like he scoots up next to you and he's kind of like going through the apps and shit. It's like, I don't give a crap about any of this. It was a setup.
That's awesome. I do worry about that sometimes because I usually am on my phone until the movie starts for the exact reason we talked about. I've seen all these trailers 7 times at this point. But I always worry, like, if I'm going to get that one person that just like this is part of the movie experience and I'm that guy everybody loves to hate. But yeah, that's
I don't
pretty
usually
awesome.
get annoyed if people are on during the trailers unless the lights have fully dimmed and it's just like a super bright light coming from there. Then it's more like, I'm not upset yet, but I'm going to keep an eye on you. And as soon as that title comes up, this is going to be a problem. This is going to be a problem.
Slasher in Suits. My worst theater experience was having my car stolen during Seed of Chucky. Like the movie was bad, then the car was gone. Well, the car being stolen was probably the highlight of that evening, unfortunately. All right, let's catch up on Super Chats really quick. I got a couple of them that are brewing over here. All right.
That's wild because I stole a car during a showing of Seed of Chucky. I wonder if that's the same one.
September 2004? Like, oh, man. Colin says, you three are the most reasonable, honest, and insightful critics out there. Awesome to see you guys all coming together. I appreciate it, man. Colin, we met him at MegaCon as well.
MegaCon, yeah.
It's always helpful when the profile pic is the actual person and not Michael Myers.
Where are you at, Adam?
Hell. I'm in hell. This is I'm in South Carolina.
That's not too far from Florida.
No, we're not too far from each other, but there's only 2 theaters in like an hour and a half.
No, I'm scheming for MegaCon next year.
Oh yeah, I would love to. I've never been to a con or anything that's fun, I guess, in my life. I don't do any sort of like events. I just sit in my cave here and film my stuff, and that's it.
We'll have to change that.
Yeah,
I went to college in South Carolina.
I'm in. You want my address and everything? I can give you everything. I'm in Somerville. I'm in Somerville, which everybody decided to move to after COVID. I think
Nice.
South Carolina had like 1 million new people move here in a year. It can't handle that many people. It's a mess. Yeah.
I went to Somerville to buy my amplifier when I was 17. That's the only time I've been to Somerville, and then I promptly left.
Yeah, that's fair.
I went to college in Columbia.
Okay, yeah.
I thought that Texas was in the deep South. And then I went to Columbia, and instantly I was like, no, Texas is Texas. This is something else.
Texas is its own thing, man. Like it's technically South, but Texas might as well be its own country within the U.S. Like it's different. Huh?
We lost you. I lost you at least.
Lost who?
I lost Cody.
Oh,
the audio.
Did you guys lose me?
No. I got both of you guys.
Oh wow.
This is
Cody like cut out for me for a little bit there.
This is like some poltergeist shit. Sean's coming out of the TV. Guys, can you hear me?
Hopefully let me double check, make sure nobody's saying I'm frozen, because sometimes that'll be nope. Okay, no comment. Okay. Scared me there. Sean and Adam, I've been watching your videos for a while. Cody, I know you primarily because of 31 on 31. I think now things are very different because of streaming, MCU, Star Wars, and DC struggling. Oh yeah, for sure.
It's that quantity over quality. Just cranking so much stuff out that.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching us.
Yes, thank you as well.
Sean, thoughts on Beetlejuice 2? I love Jen Ortega. Briefly.
That one has me nervous. Like Beetlejuice is such a thing. It's so specific, and Tim Burton hasn't been that guy for 30 years. Like he's done things that have been good since then, but like he was a very weird, eccentric guy that had a thing that he did, and then he became mainstream guy that tried to be that, but it's trying to recapture that magic. And like Michael Keaton's in his 70s. I just don't. I'm nervous. I'd love. I showed the first one to my kids a few months back, so I'd love for it to be great. But
did they like it?
Enough said.
They didn't. Yeah. They were interested to check it out. They didn't have a negative reaction, but it wasn't also one that they were like re-explore, and maybe that's it was too detached from a new thing, and other people weren't talking about it, so maybe just culture moved so fast that it wasn't latched. But they specifically were interested in checking it out, and so some of it's a matter of their mom doesn't do horror at all, so anything that's kind of like creepy and spooky, she leaves town. It's like, let's watch this. So Beetlejuice was one of those. So then mom comes back. I don't know if it was that, but it didn't like leave a lingering mark the way some other things have that are kind of older films.
Cody, how did you celebrate Christine turning 40 last week? By not watching it. I had no idea they turned 40. It's an awesome movie, though. I almost saw it earlier this year at a Fathom event, but I had something else I had to do. I love Halloween Ends, giving some winks to it. Most underrated Carpenter movie. I could agree with that. It's in my top 5. It's not in most people's. Jason Takes Manhattan, Candyman 3, A Return to Sleepaway Camp. That's a pretty much trifecta of hell no all the way around.
I was going to say, where am I at right now?
I'm telling you, torture. We need to bring back 90-minute actioners and comedies. I agree.
Yes.
What's a movie?
Can we talk about the fact that John Wick 4 was like 35 hours long? Why is this so long? He's still killing people over a dog. It's getting ridiculous now.
There was 30 minutes of just falling downstairs.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, and that's a real thing. Like,
yeah.
Him falling downstairs. It's the most epic of falling downstairs we have ever gotten in cinema.
Even the Family Guy writers are like, that might be a bit much. We wouldn't even hold the joke that long.
What's a movie you never get sick of? I just saw Die Hard in theaters 2-3 days ago. That's one. Terminator 2, Back to the Future. I got a whole bunch of answers. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles I watch every Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we do as well. Were you bummed that they didn't remaster Die Hard at all? It almost looked worse than the copy I own at home.
It looked fine to me, but no, I enjoyed it. It was me and one other dude and his girlfriend, and then about 35 minutes in, I think she was just like, why the fuck are we in the theater watching this movie that you've already forced me to watch at home? I want to leave now. And so they just unceremoniously left.
No.
Right about the welcome to the party pal moment. They just left and never came back. And so then it was just me. And I enjoyed the hell out of it. I was like, this is awesome. This movie never loses a single drip of awesome to me.
I agree.
That's you figure out how you married the right person.
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer would be more like, let's go see Die Hard in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
She would be more inclined to do that. She's like, well, I mean, we haven't watched Die Hard this year yet. It's not really Christmas season. Like, she's that person. So that's how I knew I married the right.
She was
person.
The one.
There you go.
She's the one.
That should be in your vows. Yeah, it's a Die Hard. No,
Cody, she was my booby. Yeah, because she liked Die Hard.
My local theater is bringing back the OG Nightmare all of October 2024 for its 40-year anniversary. Your thoughts? Cool. I don't really have much else to say. Sorry. That's cool. Check it out. Some movies I think of Titanic need that long as fuck runtime to do it justice. Things like Terrifier 2 don't need 140 minutes. I mean, yeah, like we were saying earlier, it depends on the movie. It's not really a problem where we're saying 3-hour movies shouldn't exist. It's more of a compound of a lot of movies are longer than they need to be, compounded with so many 3-hour movies are coming out more than ever. To where it used to be this like once, twice a year thing. You get this epic, you get a Braveheart, you get something like that. Nowadays, it's like every other weekend, this movie is 2.5 hours long, 3 hours long. It feels like, and then it's been that way the last couple of years. And like Terrifier 2 is a good example. Like to me, that was kind of like a Zack Snyder's Justice League situation. It was crowdfunded. It was, for the fans. They didn't expect it to do the bonkers money that it did. So that was just kind of like, here's the big fat ass version for all of our fans, because we know you're going to want every second that I can produce. And that's why that movie specifically was long. But it should have been 20 minutes shorter.
But what did your 13-year-old think of the 2.5 hour runtime of Terrifier? Did she think like that was about right, or did she think maybe that was a bit too much?
I don't think they beat that girl in the wings enough. They should have kept going.
I just think like I felt there could have been one more round of torturing the girl in her bedroom. Like,
That
I
would have
thought
been
the scene
nice,
was
yeah.
over, and then it kept going, and I thought it was over, and it kept going. Thought it was over, and it kept going. One more time, I think, would have hit the spot. But the one that came to mind was Enola Holmes 2.
I did not catch that one.
It's over 2 hours long, and like it was like my wife really liked the first one. I thought it was enjoyable enough. Like, oh, we got the second one. I'm thinking hour 40-minute little breezy deal. It's like 2 hours and 20 minutes. It's like, even this thing, even teenage sister of Sherlock Holmes, this is 2 hours and 20 minutes. Like, what are we doing? Why is everything this long?
It's insane.
And yet they hacked down Rebel Moon. What the hell, Netflix? You make no sense. A film that earned a 2+ hour runtime is The Batman. I would agree with that, but most people do not. Most people, that's the one thing I hear in unison, is it was too long.
I agree. It was way too long for me. It's way too long.
I probably wouldn't say way, but I would say we could have. That didn't need to be 3 hours. We could be over 2.5 for me, perhaps.
There you go. Grew up with Halloween 1 and 2, Christine, The Lost Boys on VHS, lost countless nights of sleep with Halloween 2, Myers in the hospital. Thoughts on Redbox? Do you have any in your area still? I still have them at like Family Dollar and things like that. I've literally never used one, so I don't have any thoughts on them. But like by that time, Netflix was a thing. I bought most movies, so I didn't even really rent movies too much. Like Redbox came out as the video stores were phasing out, and I just never saw the point of them. So Walmart and Family Dollar, I still see them at all the time.
Do you guys remember the 3 months? I'm not even sure it lasted that long. This was the worst marketing campaign and rebrand since X on Twitter, where Netflix decided they were going to rebrand their mailing service.
Yeah, I remember this.
Do you remember the name of the service?
What was it?
Was it
Quickster.
That's right.
Yes.
Quickster.
That's right.
Just
That's right.
a huge disaster. Anyway, that just came to me because of Redbox. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Netflix has a series of these like just bonehead things that just shooting themselves in the foot. Like, if you guys don't remember the history on this, for those of you watching, Netflix for over a decade was a mail-in DVD service, and then they added on as a free service this streaming extra thing that was only on browsers, and then this totally extra thing was then added to Xbox and PlayStation. It was totally extra for years. You weren't paying for it. And then at one point in time, they're like, this is the future. So they decide they're going to split it. That's totally reasonable. And somehow they managed to just mess the whole thing up. And like just totally makes sense. Like, right, these are two different things, two different services. One of them has been free for 3 years.
Right.
Okay. And totally botched it, and it became the laughing stock, and they had to undo it before they even launched it. It was amazing.
It was
They've
fantastic.
done weird things like that, like all throughout their process, to where it's kind of shocking that they're still as successful as they are. Because like you have that, and then streaming services like Netflix was what you called that for a long time because they just owned it. They were like the Kleenex, the Post-it note. They were the brand.
Futuristic, future thinkers, ahead of the curve, but also morons at the same time.
And so I remember whenever it was announced that they were going to start producing their own movies, and that was a huge deal. It was like, oh, this is going to be the game changer. And then, we're all expecting these awesome movies, these cool little mid-budget things. And then they just greenlight everything. And they still greenlight everything to where when I see a Netflix movie, I assume it's going to suck until I'm surprised. And then you even have like they're the only streaming service that doesn't release their big premiere movies in theaters for a couple of weeks, even if they're Oscar level stuff. It's just like, how do you still screw this up? How does Axel Foley not have a 2-week theater window? How did you spend $400 million on the Knives Out sequels and don't put them in theaters?
Right. And that was an active, like almost argument in my family.
Yeah,
because my sister, her whole family is really into murder mysteries. They'll do murder mystery parties. And so they were like really excited to get to see that on the big screen. And It was like only for like 3 days over Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? We missed it. We're not going to get to see the glass onion on the big. Why would they do that? That's the great mystery.
Well,
what are they doing?
Were they competing with the stupidity that was HBO Max at the time, where they thought, here's a great idea. Let's release $200-300 million movies like Kong versus Godzilla, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman 84. Let's do day and day release on our streaming service. What could go wrong?
Mm-hmm.
How much money did they lose? I can't even fathom it.
There's a reason why all the other studios just sat back and watched. So they were like, let's see how this plays out. Because all they were trying to do is they were trying to expedite the process of snuffing out the theater industry so they could keep everything. But then everybody was like, well, the negative side of that is you make dick on all of your movies, but good plan. So yeah, it's been a wild thing for the last couple of years. Just so many crazy things. Thoughts on A24 handling Friday the 13th? Extremely weird, but I'm curious. Anyone else miss when a midnight showing meant midnight showing? No, I don't. I love the fact that I can go to the theater at 4, 5, 6 and see the new movie. Midnight screenings were cool once in a while for like a horror new release or something, but I appreciate the convenience of a regular, sensible movie time. I
miss it just from just for the pageantry and the fun camaraderie with your friends. It felt like an event. I miss it for that, but yeah, I'm an adult now and I have too much shit to do.
Yeah.
and because it was such an obnoxious thing, you could only do it for something you were excited about that was an event. So like even movies, I went to a couple of those for Twilight movies because I'm a manly man,
of course,
and my wife was into Twilight. And so I went to one, there's literally a guy in cosplay for Darth Vader, midnight screening of Twilight. But I remember that, and I remember seeing Thor, and I remember these very specific, like it was an event, because it's like, man, I'm going to stay up till 3 a.m. watching this deal. And then now it makes more sense. It's much more convenient, like on every level, to have that at 7 at night rather than midnight. There is something lost there of the event of, I committed to do a stupid thing, and I'm going to be tired at work tomorrow.
Going to those Lord of the Rings movies at midnight on a school night, and then having to go to like a Perkins coffee shop restaurant at 3:30 to try to get my homework done before school. That's a special time in my life that I'll never get back. But it was worth it.
Halloween Ends is a misunderstood masterpiece. Yeah, I said it. Quattro, $5.
I didn't mind Halloween Ends. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of dug Halloween Ends, but not like.
I didn't hate it.
I don't think it's a masterpiece, but
no, I was totally on the middle on it, but I was so emotionally detached. I just kind of got. I mean, I had a bad history with the Halloween fan base from 2018, and so like there was a part of my brain that kind of like laughed at the things that I saw. Like when he manhandles Michael Myers in the sewer, I was just like, oh, they're going to be so fucking bad. This is going to be so great to watch.
Yes.
And so yeah, I thought it was fine.
It's because the shape left him.
Yeah.
The shape had chosen the new little shithead. That's why.
Yep.
I mean, come on, people.
Decisions.
Use imagination.
I did not understand it. I misunderstood. First off, I hadn't seen Christine before watching it, but also making the big finale, your 40 years showdown, your homage to Christine.
Yeah.
That's a choice. And having
it was the plan all along, Sean.
All along.
The writer said on Twitter that it was always the plan.
And having the kid that was bullied by band kids beat up Michael Myers and steal his mask in the sewer, that's a choice.
Yeah.
I wouldn't make that choice.
It was a bold strategy, Cotton. Yeah. I don't know if it paid off for him.
Just wait until this Exorcist trilogy, and he will show you choices.
Is he getting that?
Are we ready to admit that Halloween Ends is the best Halloween movie yet? Are we ready to admit?
I read that like a Twitter post. God,
that whole genre of. Like, are we ready to admit?
Yeah. The guy on the guy at the front of the lines, like he's Braveheart, making the sacrifice by saying such a bold thing.
It always comes back to Last Jedi too. Are we ready to admit this is the greatest Star Wars since Empire? And you
critics didn't like Empire. The internet are like,
preach.
The other half's like Empire when it came out. Said someone. What?
I had to deal with a guy playing
Luke to not change after 30 years. People change.
I did a joke skit video where I was completely riffing on Last Jedi without saying it, but essentially I was pitching a movie that was going to take place in at Hogwarts in the future, like 30 years, and Harry was going to be living off in a cave, and he had a scar, like the lightning bolt scar went down further, and he's bitter and angry, and he hates the wizarding world, and he wants it to end. And as I'm saying, I'm like, yeah, this is Luke Skywalker, isn't it? It doesn't sound very great when you put it with a person that you grew up with, kids. It's terrible. It's just, and it's so out of left field for any of these types of characters to make this change off screen. I hate it.
You just want all the movies to be the same as when you grew up.
I think that when people are like, they say that like they do something different, people are like, but it's also not that different. The plot is still Empire Strikes Back plus the throne room scene from Return of the Jedi.
It would have been different if Kylo and Rey would have actually teamed up and burned it all to the ground. That would have been different, but instead it's still Sith versus, light side versus dark side. It's nothing changed.
Oh, Lord. I had to deal with the guy playing
more
racist.
time on
Now let me talk to you about Kathleen Kennedy for 3 hours. How she ruined
Speaking of the Hollywood industry, I have to deal with a guy playing racist audio drops on 2 hidden speakers during Godzilla Minus One. That's when you get a manager, when they're just actively doing things to piss people off. To see
no, that was
who's
the manager.
winner.
That's the plot twist.
Yeah, gotcha. Get out. The only time I got a weird cinema experience is when 3 girls naked. A lot of noise because the staff warned us about some boys and they was quiet. Huh. It's a Wonderful Life, best film ever. I'm guessing that's directed towards Uncle Sean. Hello, gentlemen. Keep watch burn. Across the Spider-Verse, John Wick, Guardians of the Galaxy. I'll keep John Wick.
Well, that's John Wick 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll keep John Wick 4. I'll watch Across the Spider-Verse and burn Guardians of the Galaxy, I guess. But I like all 3 of those. All 3 of those are going to be in my top 15 at least.
Amazing. Are we all supposed to do this, or is this just for you?
Yeah.
Adam,
you got to give.
I guess I'd probably honestly burn Wick 4. I'd watch Spider-Verse and I'd keep Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But I do like John Wick 4. I just think that we didn't necessarily need it.
Yeah, I'd probably burn John Wick 4 too, just on the level of like story satisfaction. I think the other 2 have things there, whereas John Wick 4 is like, oh, this is incredible stunt work. But the other 3 were as well. And for me, Guardians would be the most rewatchable, so that would be my keep.
That's where I'm at.
Gotcha. I have no more questions, just hoping that you do a review series on The Shield one day. Maybe. That's a show that I'd love to have them do like a revival season or something. The day and day release was Jason Killar's idea, and who eventually got fired or stepped down at Warner Brothers once Discovery bought them. I mean, makes sense.
Okay.
All right, we are caught up on all those massive amounts of questions. So I had another direction that I kind of wanted to take things, because this is where we start to get into we'll do it with kid gloves, because this is what's going to start to ignite the chat if we go certain directions. How big
talking
of
about Brie Larson? Is it about Brie Larson?
Exactly.
Oh, is Rachel Ziegler? Is it about
indirectly? Yes, actually.
I already brought up Kathleen Kennedy, KKK Kathleen Kennedy. So
how big of an impact do you honestly think culture wars have on the movie industry, or is it just our side of it where we just watch the fallout on Twitter and on YouTube? Like, do you really think that movie studios are greenlighting and making checkbox decisions based off of what's going to get people angry or get people on their side post movie release? I mean, I know I'm of the opinion that it's not as widespread of an issue as some people like to make it seem, where everything that has a woman on the poster or a black lead is woke. But there's absolutely some movies where you look at it and you're like, that was an executive that told them to put that line in there. There's that's something that becomes one of the more annoying topics of discussion in movie criticism, movie discussion, punditry, whatever you want to call it, is the constant woke versus anti-woke crowd.
It's like a huge topic. There are so many like little avenues you can go down that all kind of reach here. I think the broadest stroke I could say is Hollywood has always been liberal. They've always been very liberal, because most writers are, most creative sides are liberal. And so, I mean, I brought this up a couple days ago with on another channel. I went back and watched Lethal Weapon 1, and there's a scene where the daughter is drawing a planet Earth, and she's talking about how we're ruining the Earth and stuff. If that would have came out today, that would have been a woke scene in a film that had no place in there. It didn't add anything to the story. And because there's profit to be made now over outraging on this kind of stuff online, people are going to make videos on that because it is profitable. It speaks to a base. And on the other side of it, that base isn't necessarily wrong about things, but they get driven so far into the ground that it becomes painful to even listen to. So there's so much you could say. Sean, why don't you jump in if you want, because I could ramble on for like an hour and a half about this stuff.
Wait, you think, like, you bring up Lethal Weapon, like Murtaugh's family is very political overtly in those movies. It's just that this background detail about them. And then in the second one, they're like, they form a riot over the apartheid like, that's one of the most memorable scenes in the movie. It's overtly political. And so there's things like that have always been there. I think there's, I don't know, the social media and then even like COVID, they just kind of amplified things that were already said. It felt like everyone was provoking each other in a way and more antagonistic, to where it felt more like there were sides to some of the Hollywood stuff that was more like looking down.
It's so sycophantic all around. It's not even necessarily politics or religions or anything. It's everything now. There's a fandom for everything. You're told on YouTube and on all social media platforms that you need to niche down. That's the big thing they always teach you now. Niche down. There's thousands of movie review channels. What makes you special? Well, Cody goes more into the horror side of things. Sean Chandler does a lot of ranking videos.
I wear ties. That's my new thing.
Adam needs to get a haircut.
I film everything with nothing on my bottom half.
Yeah, he's just Daffy Ducking it over there? Is that Donald Ducking it? But because of these niches, then you do get fandoms for Sonic the Hedgehog and for all these different groups, and it builds up this base of people that's just so passionate, and they get fired up and think that, Sean doesn't like Sonic the Hedgehog 2. You probably did, but I'm just saying, if you didn't, we need to go after this guy because he doesn't understand the nuance and the lore of Sonic. And you're just watching a movie and reviewing the story and the plot and characters. It has nothing to do with insulting a fan base, right? Or insulting a religion or a left or right politics.
Yeah. Well, and then like you do something like that, and they'll be like, "You shouldn't be allowed to review movies if you're not a fan of the game. If you don't know the lore." It's like that. That is so missing the point of what a review is. That is so utterly like devoid of what a reviewer does. Is they have a perspective that they can bring to the table, and if they're honest about it, where they're coming from, it's a valid perspective that's useful to help other people from that same perspective. It's just these crazy, just like locked in on things that are so extreme, so over the top, and it's it's that hyper exaggerated version of everything that seems like social media brings out, and of course the Zack Snyder one being one of the more fascinating ones of the last 10 years. Of there's people that like borderline worship him, and I don't even think they watch his movies. It's bizarre.
A lot of them don't.
I've told this story before, but I'm so middle-aged that I bought windows from a door-to-door salesman. That's how middle-aged I have become. And they're amazing windows. It's great. But so this we get them. The guy comes to do the whole extensive version of all the details. This guy's at our house for hours, and so we get it talking. It's like, I talk about movies for a living. Turns out that the windows salesman hardcore into the release the Snyder Cut movement. And this is over a year after. This is 2022, so a year after the movie released. And he's getting into, Grace Randolph, and I love what she was able to do with all this. I'm like, okay. And so then I go, what did you think about the movie? And he goes, oh man, by the time it came out, I'd already read all the leaks. I already knew it was in there. So I didn't end up watching the movie. But
Oh
I
my
was
God.
And it was like this.
And you
like,
bought windows from this gentleman, Sean? You are funding his survival in this world? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Did you say you loved it, so he gave you a discount at least?
Of course, that's the whole goal in all of this. If you're wondering why I gave the movie a positive review, it was to get my windows at a discount, obviously. But like it's like this sort of thing to where there's a lot of people that really like Zack Snyder because he's just different. He's very distinctly Zack Snyder. There's a reason a lot of people don't like him, and I totally get it. But it's like he doesn't come off like every other generic. We talked about started this off with all the generic $300 million movies that feel like they could have been directed by anyone, made with AI.
Sure.
When you're watching a Zack Snyder movie, it's only he can do that thing, with
for better and for worse.
And all, whatever for the better and worse. But you look at the Zack Snyder, like the internet people. There's like a crazy vein, like really crazy vein to it.
Yeah.
That's not even about movies. It's about wanting to be a part of something.
Yeah.
And so you're just looking for the next enemy, and it's legitimately, if you study sociological movements and how cults form and stuff, like exactly what this is.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see it. And it's not to say, like, I am a Zack Snyder fan. I'm not throwing movie fans under the bus, but there's that vein of a lot of this stuff that's just the weird movement, being a part of something. Like, you didn't like this? Well, or like, if you didn't like the Marvels, it's because you're sexist and racist. And so it's like part of this moral cause, whether it's Zack Snyder, the Marvels, She-Hulk, and, well, actually, how dare you? Have you noticed that have you noticed a lot of this?
Yep.
And it's not about film criticism. It's not even about fandom. It's about a moral cause and being a part of a movement.
It's about getting them. It's about owning them so that you can feel special for a little bit because you're with like-minded people that can take someone else down and make you feel, I guess, a little good inside for some reason. Yeah, it's funny. After the Godzilla review, I actually went and watched your review, Sean. Cody, yours wasn't out yet at the time. I was just curious where you approached it from, and you started almost the same exact way I did, because I feel like we come at these things with good faith in mind. You start out saying, listen, I'm not a big Godzilla guy. I've seen a couple of the American movies, maybe like I've dabbled in some of the Japanese stuff, but this isn't what I'm doing. I'm just reviewing the movie. And the reason you preemptively said that, and why I do as well, is you're priming the audience to say, listen, if you're a big Godzilla dude, you don't give a shit what I'm going to say. And I'm going to say a bunch of ignorant stuff to you because I don't know all these characters and how many spikes Godzilla should have or how tall he should be. This is not my thing. And I'm going to say something that insults you for sure. So just walk away. Just leave. I'm not forcing you here. This review is for general audiences like my brother or my mom. That's like, what am I going to get out of this film? You're going to get a very slow-paced movie. You're going to get some really great special effects. You're going to get a very story-driven narrative. This is the thing that has value for some people, but it's not going to have value for these fandoms that are just obsessed with their own base. I don't get it.
Some of these movies, like you very much what you just said, I go into it and I have to give context. And some of that, I think that's useful to interpret a review. Like giving you, here's the point of reference I'm coming from. So if you have my same point of reference, then you can track along with this. Or if you have a very different point of reference, I'm watching this differently. And you just have to like set the stage first. And you preemptively try and think through all the ways people are going to pounce on you or like whatever it's going to be. And so you just try like, which it's bizarre.
And you never and you never guess the right way that they're going to pounce on you. You try to get all the holes patched up, and then they make a new one. You're like,
well, it's some of these ones there's no winning. So like on my short 1 minute video out of the theater on Barbie, 1 minute. There's not a lot in there. It's so limited, and
it's your full review.
But on this short little deal, I'm called a woke idiot and a Ben Shapiro clone. Both of those on the same 1 minute video. And I'm like,
bringing them together.
You can't possibly come to either one of those outcomes unless you just are so entrenched in a culture war. You're so entrenched in looking for the enemy that you're on a witch hunt to find it. And therefore, I put out as down the middle of the road of a review as you can. I really liked this. I really didn't like this. And all you saw was the either if you're anti-woke, he said something positive about Barbie, he's a woke idiot. And if I said something negative, what, you didn't like there was a 10-minute monologue of grievances from women? That means you're Ben Shapiro. Were you burning your daughter's Barbies after the movie?
Funny enough, my family just watched that movie right before I came on the live because they hadn't seen it. My daughter liked it. My wife did not like it. My son left halfway through, and I was like you. I was right kind of in the middle on all of it. Like, I don't need these 10-minute long lectures when show don't tell is so much more effective in film. And again, Barbie, 90 minutes would have been.
Adam, you sound like a sexist pig right now for saying show don't tell. How
James Cameron told Greta Gerwig that was the most brave and powerful monologue. Whatever.
Sushitly put.
All I'm thinking is, man, 90 minutes would have been real good for Barbie.
Yeah. So here's a perfect example since this guy wanted some attention. No one called BVS a masterpiece. I think I have heard Cody call them Batman a masterpiece. Talk about woke crap.
Ooh.
3-hour movie.
What was that one
3-hour movie, one line where Catwoman calls the criminals of the movie white privileged assholes. Woke movie. That is the world we live in.
Yep.
Anyway.
That's the one overt line. It is kind of an anti-incels when you move into the final. There's a couple other things that a branch of the internet is like, you're coming after us.
That's the example that's always given.
Right. Like, she says, like, a character says a thing that a person like that would say. That means that's the perspective of the movie. Like, characters get to have opinions.
A poor oppressed character who's black, who sees a bunch of white dudes in charge, has an opinion on white dudes.
Right.
Yeah, you can call
Surprise!
her racist. Call the character racist if you want.
Right.
But, that doesn't mean the movie's woke. That's just
I always go
3 hours.
Yes. If you want a woke movie, watch Black Christmas 2019. That is always my quintessential example. That is a movie that is 99% message and agenda, 1% plot and movie.
I saw one of those recently, and I was just cringing from head to toe about how overtly woke it was. And now I can't remember the name, but it was terrible. It's funny you bring up the politics side because I did just review a Netflix movie that I hated with Julia Roberts. I can't remember the name of it. You guys might know. It just came out.
I haven't seen it yet.
The Ethan Hawke one. Yeah. I forgot the name because it's so generic. But I didn't know at the time that it was produced by the Obamas. That means I don't give a shit. I just watched the movie, and of course, fireworks fly from that. I didn't like it, I guess, thankfully, because I feel like the right side of YouTube attacks me far more than the left side of YouTube does lately. But I don't care about either side. I think it's all stupid. But a comment just today said, "Hey, maybe if you took off your political glasses, you could appreciate the movie for what it was." I just didn't even know. I don't know how to respond to any of these insane people. It's like, dude, maybe you should take off yours and realize that some people don't come at movies like that.
Yeah.
I had a month stretch here where my Men review from last year started to get some traction right around the same time.
Leave the World Behind.
Yes. Okay. I haven't watched it yet.
Thank you.
I wish I wouldn't have known that the Obamas produced it before I watched it because I feel like that's going to be hard to like sift through. Like that was probably an Obama like line right there. Nonetheless, I had my Men review from last year, which I did not like that movie at all. Started to pick up some traction right around the same time that
did it hit too close to home, Cody?
Feels like this is bringing some things to the surface.
Did you
but right around
birthed out of a man's ass?
Yes, exactly. 9 times in 5 minutes. Right around the same time that my Nefarious review took off, which I also did not like that movie. So I had comments calling me a wife beating redneck basically alongside comments like, this guy clearly likes all the woke movies, and like this is a liberal if I've ever seen one. And I'm just like, I'm loved and hated equally from all sides. Apparently,
you're like Gollum / Smeagol from Lord of the Rings, where you just have these two mirrors and you keep kind of like looking over at yourselves, like, who am I?
Yeah, exactly. Who am I today?
Precious? No.
Sean's right about the Zack Snyder crowd. BVS fans still go ballistic if you say you dislike that movie and claim it's too smart for you. Well, the thing going on now with Rebel Moon, which it's weird because there's just enough ammo on each side to understand a point, but it just goes so into the ridiculous that the conversation is lost. So I noticed how weird it was, how quickly all the trades were trying to report the Rotten Tomatoes score. Like, it felt like it was probably out for minutes. And they're like, oh, 9%, this is what it is. And then like you click it and it's already
immediately like, it's mid-20s. Bad score.
Yes, which is still not
there's
good.
There's no indefensible. But not 9%. Like, how many movies with a 9% do you like? But you like some movies with a 29%. Correct.
Whatever. And so you definitely feel that compounded with some of the blurbs, if you actually read them, a bit of a bias against Snyder, to where it's like, did you watch this with the intention to shit on Snyder fans? Because that's how it feels. So I get that inkling of it.
Well, Barbie
and now the overcorrection has been people flooding the audience score, and now that's going all over Twitter. Like, see, the audience score is already 86. Don't ever trust the critics. And I'm like, yeah, all 300 of these people saw the movie that's not even fucking out yet. Good thinking.
Yes.
And you look the very first one when you click on it, it says, the movie's probably going to be good because of the critic score. That's the review, 5 stars.
That's what I saw people saying, like, well, you know, the critic score was 80, or audience score was 80% yesterday. It's down to 70%. Should that be concerned? Like, it means nothing.
No.
The movie doesn't come out for a week, and there's a freaking audience score. Stop and think about that. Like, people complain, like, Rotten Tomatoes, sometimes they restrict the audience score when they think there's review bombing, and they're trying to make it so you have to prove that you've seen the movie. Like, audience scores are user polls. They don't mean anything because, of course, one group of people bombs it with a 10, other group of people bombs it with a 1 or whatever. It's like everyone knows this, but we pretend it's like, well, the people giving it a 10, those are the honest reviews, but the people giving it the 0s, those are just the angry white men on the internet. It's like, they're both people doing culture wars. This freaking movie hasn't come out yet, and people are praising its audience score. They haven't seen the freaking movie.
Can we get a YouTube channel that's live 24/7 where it's just a dude looking at Rotten Tomatoes scores and just freaking out anytime it changes at all? Holy shit, we went down another %. We got to get on this.
The hilarious one that I had going back to Nefarious. So if you guys haven't seen Nefarious, I know I've talked with Sean about it, but it's a movie that's advertised as kind of this possession thriller, and it's actually created by the people that made God's Not Dead. So it's a very Christian message based movie.
Personal favorite of mine.
Yeah. So I knew,
I was a youth pastor when God's Not Dead came out. So the movie comes out, and one of the ends of the movie is like, text everybody you know, God's not dead. So I'm just sitting at home on a Friday night, and for like 2 hours straight, people just keep texting me, God's not dead. The movie ends with like kids going to a Christian band concert, and they run into the family from Duck Dynasty.
Oh my gosh.
It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
It's literally an email forward about the secularizing professor that turned into a movie. Like the annoying email forward from 2004 turned into a movie. Anyway, sorry, I wanted to rant about that.
No, you're
Cody,
good.
you were saying about a totally different movie.
Yeah, so I only saw this movie it was a night where I just wanted to do a triple feature. I wanted to go bold. So I saw Renfield, Pope's Exorcist, and Nefarious back to back.
Nice.
And all I knew about Nefarious was Sean Patrick Flannery was in it. And I like him. I was like, okay, cool possession movie. Maybe it'll be cool. And it was only after seeing the movie where I'm like, man, that was a really like overt agenda type movie. That's really weird. They didn't advertise it that way. And they don't even advertise from creators of God's Not Dead for that reason, because they don't want to scare people away. They want movie fans to go and then accidentally get the message. And so I do my review. It's a negative review. And to this day, I'll still get trickles, but for months, like a good 5-6 month stretch there, I must have been on some subreddit somewhere in christianconservativeamerica.com.
Sure.
And so I was just getting trashed like completely from the fans of that movie. And the gotcha that everybody kept giving me was like, just look at the audience scores compared to the critics. The critics are paid off and they're all leftists. And I'm like, there's literally like 11 reviews being counted on the critic side. And I guarantee at least 10 of them had no idea they were walking into a God's Not Dead movie.
Right.
They walked in, they were the thriller horror channel that went to go watch this.
Mm-hmm.
And all 10,000 of the audience reviews all were told to do this at church last week. So it's just, it's crazy how weaponized the Rotten Tomatoes score has been. Like, and that was something I wrote down too on my notes, is like the Rotten Tomatoes culture of critics demonization and all this other weird stuff. And it's always changed. Like if the critic score will be used as a gotcha about how we're all paid off idiots, and then 5 seconds later it'll be proof about why
got 100%, and this jerk Adam is took. How dare you take away the 100%? This like I care deeply about the 100% suddenly.
Yeah,
but then they would also be completely ignorant because they would say, this guy's not a real critic anyway, so who cares what he has to say? I was like, well, you do. I don't give a shit. You're the one freaking out about my fake critic score, I guess.
Yeah.
The Sound of Freedom was the one that got me at the beginning of the year. That's the one that hurt.
I'd never even bothered with that one. If I wouldn't have seen Nefarious and dealt with that, I would have jumped on the Sound of Freedom just out of curiosity.
Well, the Sound of Freedom was my thing with Nefarious. I didn't know. I was on a cruise with my family, and I came back, and every single YouTube video I had was like, why haven't you watched Sound of Freedom, coward? You need to see this movie. It's amazing. Like, I'm serious. There was hundreds of comments on random YouTube videos, and I'm just thinking, oh, this must be a really good movie. I don't even know what this is. So I seriously saw it the night that I got back, and I thought it was just so lame. And then there was the whole religious angle, which whatever, but I reviewed it, and the stuff that these supposed religious people called me and said about me was just amazing. I'm like, wow. I don't know.
Follow-up short was incredible.
Yeah, and I think 50% of the people did think I was serious, so whatever. Where I said I was wrong about the Sound of Freedom. Because so many nice people in the comments pointed out how wrong I was, and now I see the light. Yeah. Well, at least you came to the right conclusion at the end.
Noticed all these pedophiles in Hollywood won't review this movie. Like, I there's weirdos in Hollywood. You're not wrong. Yes. There's a lot, but like also, not everything is a conspiracy theory.
Right.
The fun one about that one is that it went both ways.
Yeah.
There was no winning. No. Like if you didn't review it, it's because obviously you support sex trafficking.
Yeah.
And if you did review it, then you're a QAnon conspiracy theorist or platforming QAnon conspiracy theorist. And like people on Twitter are like, anyone that reviews this, how dare that? There was a person from a channel 4 or 5 times bigger than mine that messaged me like, hey, I wanted to cover it. Seemed like good. I was just going to see if I enjoyed it. I saw this person covered it, and Twitter just thrashed them endlessly for giving it a positive review. I was like, that is so toxic. That is so weird. And it's like, it has nothing to do with film criticism. No. It's entirely bizarre culture war stuff. And both sides do insane stuff. Like, and people say, of course, we're saying both sides. Like, no, really. There's crazy people on both sides. Just act normal, people. It's okay to have an opinion on things, but stop acting insane about everything.
I will say, those Sound of Freedom folks at the theaters, that was a packed house on a random Wednesday night or whatever. They were the quietest, most respectful people I ever sat in a theater with. I was very impressed. There was a guy.
Wait a minute. A packed theater? I was told by the internet no one actually saw the film. Dude, I saw a video that confirmed no one was actually there.
So stupid. I love when they do that too. They did that with the first Captain Marvel movie, how Disney was like paying for movie theater tickets. Remember that?
Yeah.
And Disney bought all these theaters up. It's not selling any tickets. Like, is it a far-fetched idea? Is it a far-fetched concept to think that maybe a movie in the MCU that was wedged between two of the biggest Marvel movies ever, Infinity War and Endgame, and that people have already been told is going to feature a character who's in Endgame, would sell really well? It's not far-fetched. Come on, people. Let's use our heads.
Yeah. One of the reasons I brought up this seemingly a shift in how Hollywood treats the critic side of things. How do you guys feel like how that has impacted Hollywood, if at all, to where, we talked about it briefly before we went live, to where to this day, everybody in the movie industry still talks so highly of like Roger Ebert, Gene Siskel, like those guys that started it all, who were notoriously ruthless to movies that they did not like. I mean, more ruthless than a lot of the YouTubers and critics that I know on their worst days. I mean, you had The Thing, which nowadays is known as a classic, the Barth Bag movie of February, or whatever Siskel called it. Like he titled his book to give a fuck you to Rob Schneider that said, your movie sucks. That's the name of his book. Yeah. And, there's all these examples.
Famous clip of the two of them are on Letterman, same time as Chevy Chase. Chevy Chase is promoting Three Amigos. That is why he is on Letterman. And after joking around for a little bit, they turn to him and they go, but I got to be honest, I did not like this movie at all. They say it to Chevy Chase's face, and Chevy Chase is actually a big guy, and he's known for being mean. And right to his face on Letterman, trash his movie. Bold.
Yeah, these guys, they were really respected by people. People tuned into their show to hear what these guys had to say about films, and I do think they could move mountains as far as who went to see what. And some directors really hated these two. I remember in the crappy American Godzilla, the first one by Roland Emmerich, he famously had a Siskel and Ebert double. They were like the mayors or something, or they were and Godzilla just straight up crushed him to death. It was just a total fuck you to Siskel and Ebert, who had bashed his last couple films.
Yeah, Joe Dante in Gremlins 2. Leonard Maltin crapped on Gremlins, and so they put Leonard Maltin in their movie to kill him in Gremlins 2. Like, there's like,
and that's the ultimate example of being a good sport.
Right. Like, everyone's being a good sport in that situation of like, okay, right. You praise one movie, that means something, because you'll also crap on another movie.
You could
you need both.
The notoriously worst director, I don't know how to say his name. Is it U-Bowl or Uwe Boll?
Yeah, Uwe Boll.
Uwe Boll. Remember when he boxed critics? He said he set up an actual boxing match.
Tied into our conversation we had earlier, Jeff Snyder is the person he famously beat the crap out of.
Oh wow!
The same one, Jeff Snyder that we put out the Collider ones. It was a conversation we had before this started. He got the crap kicked out of him in those boxing matches. That was like the first thing he had to put.
I only heard about the event getting set up. I didn't know anybody actually did the event. That's crazy.
He showed up, and so everyone shows up hey, look, it's funny. Like critics boxing a director.
Yeah.
Bull shows up like angry, ready to like. You guys crap on my movies? You beat up my movies? And he beats the crap out of Jeff Snyder, who, this is 15, 18 years ago. Jeff Snyder's not even 40 yet. So he's like intern at whatever website he was for. Like he's like new guy, like, hey, 22 or whatever. And then this director shows up, beats the crap out of him.
Like Dolph Lundgren and Rocky IV. I must break you.
And like I read that on the internet that you both did that, and I didn't realize it was Jeff Snyder until fairly recently. That's like what put him on the map.
Okay. Wow. That's
so it seems to me like that started to shift a lot. Maybe it was always there, but now with the internet, it's just they're able to vocalize it a lot more. But just in the time that I've been doing this, I've felt this shift to where movie criticism, for the most part, was a respected part of the process. It was like this. Sometimes it's a necessary evil, but a lot of times it was viewed as like this educational breakdown. And I know we've diluted that a lot with everybody can be called a critic as long as you have a following nowadays. I mean, you could debate that all day.
These yahoos right here.
Exactly. You know, everybody can have their own opinion on whether we fall into that or not. So I get that, but I've noticed, especially over the last couple of years, to where there's been this rise of studios, directors, actors, like coming at critics, coming at the fans, coming at YouTubers for saying that their movie wasn't good, or for, you know, it's always for movies that genuinely most people didn't like.
Yeah.
And, you know, like nowadays, we were talking a little bit before we went live, to where I've seen a lot of people in the industry over the past week or so, like, let me just take this opportunity yet again, like I do every December, to say, fuck you, whoever does worst of movie lists. And it's just like, where did we go along the line to where we can only talk positively about art? And if you do anything other than that, you're a scumbag. Like, when did that become the conversation? Because obviously there's examples where you can understand people getting angry at, you know, we're not going to name channels, but there's certainly channels, there's certainly critics, there's certainly influencers out there that wear their biases on their sleeve, that rage click, that, you know, that'll bash a movie and give it 0 out of 5 because somebody stars in it. We know those examples, but those don't represent everybody. There's plenty of people that do it respectfully, professionally. And it just kind of seems like the narrative nowadays, that the attitude towards it all is just like, if you're not positive towards it, then you're an asshole and you don't like movies and you're the enemy. And I don't know how much that actually impacts the movie making process, but there's plenty of examples that we can give about how fans and critics alike didn't like something and that caused a change. I mean, how many times have we revitalized the Halloween franchise because people said, nope, don't like the direction you're going? And if we're going to take the attitude of only open your mouth when you like it, and if you don't like it, don't mention it ever again, that just that's not a part of movie fandom at all.
Yeah, I think Chef Ramsay's kind of famous for not liking things as much as he likes things, but I don't think anybody would question that he loves food and he's passionate about food. For, you know, it's just,
it only applies to art. I use the food examples all the time. I'm like, you know, they always say, well, people work hard on movies. I'm like, the kitchen staff in the restaurant works their ass off, but if they send me out chicken that's undercooked, they deserve to know about it.
Right. Oh. It's everything gets perverted. You know, everything gets perverted over time, and I think that it's happened here too on both sides of both. People listening to critics and not respecting them, and also critics not really respecting what they're doing. They'll do paid reviews and they won't tell people, or they'll be working alongside some studio, or they will just hate something for the clicks or because it's part of their like conversation that they're trying to get out. It's tough to trust people nowadays because everything seems so money driven. And I think that's a big reason why it is tough to be a movie critic or even a critic of a book or anything now, because they think there's an agenda behind it.
And so much of it these days with the internet era of the 10, 10, 10, 0, 0, 0 culture, where everything is this. And there's a number of reasons for that, but then being kind of exaggerated by the blending of influencers and movie critics, and inviting influencers to opening weekend, but then combining that with critics. And so then you have critics writing blurbs in hopes of getting pull quoted. And so then there's an incentive. You are invited to it in hopes that you will write something, and it's good for your career. If you're pull quoted, put in the trailer, and it's just cool. And so just there's that tendency to like exaggerate things. So all of a sudden, if you don't play that game, if you don't write with the hyperbolic language, or as you know, Cody calls it, the review Mad Libs, if you don't do that, all of a sudden people don't know what to do with a 7 out of 10, even to where like mid is now code for really bad, when mid means mid. And it's like, yeah, right. There's movies that they're perfectly fine to watch them and you forget about them. They're not, they don't step on your toes. They don't make you mad. They're just very mediocre. That's calling that what it is.
That's most movies. It's just that most movies now are so long that they get past the mid and they're now bad.
But so it's like I saw people talking about the Rebel Moon reviews, and someone was like commented, like even most of the reviews here, the positive reviews are only like 7 out of 10s and B minuses. So even the people, so no one really liked the movie. It's like, no, they liked it, they didn't love it, or they liked it, but it was flawed.
Yeah.
Nuance. Like
nuance is dead. This is the internet.
Like, right. Like, just like, come on, people. There's all of this stuff between tens and zeros, and that's where most things should and do exist. And that's being so lost in the culture of the internet that just wants to like dunk on things and way overhype everything.
Mm-hmm.
So from your perspective, Sean, as somebody that I know tries his best to be as positive as possible when you can be, what do you derailed?
just doing stuff.
If you guys don't know, the reason I'm dressed like this, I was at a wedding all day, and it was like the service was in the middle of nowhere, Texas, this morning, and the reception was, and so it was literally from early today. I was getting ready to one thing to the reception. Showed up, just got here in time, so I was like, literally right before we started, I messaged like, "Is this in 15 minutes? I don't want to walk upstairs." That's the context. So before we started, we were like guessing at what point in time my brain would snap and I would just get weird. I think we hit the moment where we're like this.
We hit it.
Oh, hit the button. Anyway, what I was asking.
Yes.
So as somebody who I know tries to be as positive as you can be when that is allowed, and to the point where you didn't even review the Leprechaun franchise because you were like, there's going to be too much negativity in this if I do this. What would you say to the people that think that there is something toxic or that there is this malicious intent in acknowledging your bad experiences at the movies for the year? A worst of list, a most disappointing list.
Top 10 worst movies,
Yeah, I mean, I some of that to me is peculiar because some of the I hate hate worst of the year list. This is so toxic. People put hard work into it. A lot of the people that say that trash movies all year long. They trash more movies than I do.
Hi, Frosty.
But so like, yeah, this is a tweet that came out today. Frosty of Collider.com. He's the editor-in-chief of Collider.com. Said like, when are we going to end worst of the year list? This is so wrong. People work so hard on it. So then the Jeff Snyder we talked about just a little bit, quote tweeted him with then 5-6 articles. Yeah, like to recent Collider articles that are worst of the year list. And so like there's like this strange thing. It's like the Twitter culture of it's an unpopular opinion to be pro worst of the year lists, but it's like that's the context to where it's a bad thing. And so like I sat and thought about that, and there was I think like in 2020 I decided not to do one because I didn't feel like I had 10 movies that were worth commenting on. So it's like if I'm looking for something to like, oh, what do I got to do to roast?
So he did a top 5 instead of top 10.
Right. No, I don't remember what it was, but it was like legitimately like I'm not gonna put something out that's just like searching to like, well, and then this crap fest over here. 10 movies came out in 2020, so the top 10, bottom 10 are the same thing. But then like you look at like this year, and you're looking at Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, or you're looking at Ghosted. There's like these movies that people worked really hard on them. And then there's this other sense in which it's like, no, this deserved better.
Right.
There is a sense in which at some point in time in here, it was just like, oh, this'll work. Oh, I've got a gimmick on how to sell tickets, make $100,000 movie, but it's Winnie the Pooh. Oh, perfect. It's not good enough. Yeah. Ghosted. You have the budget. You have all of the charismatic movie stars in the world, and you made a totally generic thing. This isn't good enough. Mm-hmm. And so that's the stuff where it's like, there's a value in a worst of the year list. And like I normally try to have almost like a theme. Like last year it was all about these just totally empty, hollow, corporate franchise sequels that it was like just they did like a was it Ice Age direct-to-video thing for Disney Plus.
That's right, I remember that.
And it was just so devoid of any soul. And the history of it, it was almost going to be like a Saturday morning TV show, and then they just like edited 3 episodes together, and they released it as a movie.
Weird, man. They would do like those group things were what 2 minutes long with 5 minutes of credits. Those were the weirdest things ever. All right, go on. All right, sorry.
But like exactly like this stuff that it's content for the sake of content. It's treating movies not as art, not as trying to capture something, be something special. It's just we need to fill our streaming service. We found a gimmick to get a thing out there. Yeah, that deserves to be called out as the worst of the year. Like you are harming movies. Even as we talked about earlier, like Adam, you talked about like movies just feel cheap now. The idea of these franchises we love, it's not an event anymore because everybody cranked one out every single week, sometimes 2 in a week. So there's nothing special about them anymore. That's worth calling out.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my perspective on them as someone that like the reason that we got into doing this is because we love movies.
Yeah.
And so I'm probably too kind on a lot of movies because I just like and enjoy movies a little bit too much. And then sometimes months will go by and I'll be like, no, just because you're cooking with butter and sugar, you can make something that's sweet in your mouth and tastes good in the moment. That doesn't mean you cooked it well. That doesn't mean it was actually good. It just, it's easy to consume. It's easy to digest. And you go, what? How was that $200 million? How did you have that talent, those actors, and put that out? What are you doing?
Yeah.
There's also a piece of, I think, comfort food for others that are in the same boat as we are, who watched these movies, felt like they wasted their money, because at the end of the day, the movie is also providing a service. It's supposed to entertain in some form. And if you feel ripped off, you should be able to voice your opinion. And so when I make a roast or a rant going off on something, I know part of it is for fun. Another part of it is to entertain. And that big part, though, I think, is to just air grievances, which other people feel like, and they might not have the voice to get it out there, or they're just searching for someone to listen to for a little while and be like, thank you. This is exactly how I felt. Everybody's bitched about traffic at some point. I don't feel bad, though, about the guy that designed the roads. You know, I don't think he's going to find the video and be like, this is my nightmare. This is what I tried to make these roads perfect, and these people are out here bitching about it. It's killing me inside.
Well, the people that design the roads for Winnie the Pooh will find it. But
the Pooh Bear will find it. And you know what? If people don't like the criticisms, they are perfectly free and have no problem voicing their criticisms about the criticisms. So feel free to make a video saying the top 10 movie critics. Throw me on there or Sean on there if you want, and I'm not going to cry about it unless you maybe say some stuff about me being part of a pedo community or a cult community, that then I might have a problem. But
I'm just trying to, even the argument, people worked really hard on this movie. And you kind of go, okay, gotcha. I mean, people work hard at your job, but also you got to make a movie in and of itself. I've never gotten to do that. Or you take Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Normally, I wouldn't dunk on a movie that cost $100,000, except they did a gimmick so that they made millions of dollars off their small investment. They made millions of dollars. The other side to it is they didn't deliver on what people expected. They made something bad. You get the millions of dollars. That is what your work got you. But your work also gets you feedback, which is that is not good enough. Right. You made a very cheap, bad movie with a very cheap, bad Winnie the Pooh skin on it.
People criticize everything. Why is movies sacred? You know, you criticize a car manufacturer, you criticize a product from Amazon, you criticize a restaurant. It's all the same thing. At the end of the day, you are voicing your opinion. If people like what you have to say, they'll like what you have to say.
Yeah, people like to forget. Like, we love movies for the art side of things. But movies are also a consumer product at the same time of being art. We are expected to go out, pay money to see this. It's not like you go out and we're just showing these movies out of the goodness of their heart. We put our hard-earned money down. We spend our time that all of us have a limited amount of on this earth with your art. And so if we don't have a good experience with it, I don't think that, unless you're just going way overboard, like the examples that you can throw out, which are the outliers, I don't think there's anything malicious in, especially if you have a platform as we do, telling your platform, hey, don't waste your time and money on this if this is the things that you don't want to see in a movie. Like,
Right.
again, like I normally, if I had a movie that was as bad of an experience as I had with Winnie the Pooh, that would be brought up twice. It would be brought up during the review. It would be brought up during my end of the year ranking. I've taken every opportunity I have been given that is relevant to bring up how horrible that movie was, because somebody might be watching me for the first time, and that might be the one time that they hear me say it, and it saves them their $7. Or if you saw it in theaters, the Fathom event, the $20 that they charged you.
Oh.
And so, to me, it's almost like if you have a platform, it's almost a responsibility sometimes. And the biggest argument that I've heard all day on Twitter today, I was talking with one dude until I wanted to put my fucking head through a brick wall because he just would not move, is like, if you review it, that's enough. Anything beyond the review is malicious. It's just you dunking and you just dogpiling on a movie. And it's like, okay, well, there's plenty of movies that end up in end of the year lists that we did not get the opportunity to review. This is the first time we're talking about them. So there's one. Number two is that there's no guarantee that every person that saw that review is the people that are watching this ranking. For me, more people see my rankings than my reviews more times than not. So it's not like I'm gathering the same 3,000 people and just talking about this movie again for the sake of it. It's a very different process when you do what we do. But my whole thing is just like, you know, when you're expressing your experience with movies, especially when you're talking about a year in review, I feel it's disingenuous to only acknowledge the good.
Right.
There's some people out there that do that. It's become this toxic positivity thing on Twitter, especially, where it's just like, if you have to be positive and praise everything because people worked hard on it. If you do anything else, you're an asshole. And it's like, how can people gather any kind of an idea of what your movie taste is and why they should listen to you if you only give us one side of it? You have to have the other side of it too to get the full spectrum.
There's actually a very popular YouTube critic, which people know me. I'm not going to say who it is, but he's very popular. He's been doing this a long time, who a couple years back said, I'm only going to review positive movies now. So it's only going to be positive reviews. And I just thought, you have completely lost purpose now. What is the point of you if you're only going to put out a positive movie? That's so useless for people. That this was a guy that would review everything, and that was kind of the reliability he brought to the table was, okay, I know I'm going to hear what he has to say on this, whether it's good or bad, but now it's just, if I see a thumbnail, well, I know he liked it. So
and I like and respect that person very much, and I used to watch their channel a lot, and for that exact reason, I don't know the last review that I've watched, because there's usually a review, aside from reviewing the movie, it's to answer a question. It's what did this person like and dislike about this movie? Well, if you put your feet in the sand and say, I'm only going to talk about the positive from now on, that question is gone. Every time you see the thumbnail, like you said, it's like, okay, this is just going to be nothing but the praise for this. I don't even need to watch the review. This person just watching, just seeing the thumbnail is okay. That person likes it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think I can respect someone committing to that. Like,
for
we
sure.
all know why they're doing why they're in that position where they're at, and there's the reason behind it. And you go, okay, that makes sense, and I can respect being totally honest about like what you're doing, why you're doing it.
Yeah, he was upfront about it for sure.
Yeah, right. From when he made that transition, it was very clear what he was doing, and I'm fine with that. And I think, I don't think only analysis is answering the question of do you like it or not. I think there's more to it of articulating why, putting language to people's feelings. But to your point, I mean, right. I probably watch fewer of this person's review videos for the same reason, kind of as well, of like it's a different thing. It's not really a movie review.
I would have been bummed out if Siskel and Ebert one day were like, yeah, we're only going to talk about good movies now. Oh, okay, well, that's a shame.
Well, sometimes there's value in hearing why other people had a bad experience with something, especially if it differs from your own. If I loved something that Sean disliked, I'm instantly more interested in hearing what he has to say about it. And I think there's a value to that in just discussing movies, and all of us as a collective, as movie fans, figuring out everybody's taste and what worked, what didn't work. And you got weird things going on nowadays with AI and CGI. And, you know, a lot of the movies that we opened up this conversation talking about that just kind of feel like they're put together by committee and thrown out as quickly as possible with $300 million budgets. And without the conversation of what's good, what's bad, what did we like, what did we hate this year, I don't know if that ever changes. You know, I don't want to put too much value on movie criticism. You know, none of us have made a film yet, but at the end of the day, we're just movie fans. We're movie fans with a camera. And there's a lot of things that come from movie fans expressing what they liked, what they didn't like. That's how franchises get successful. They go on to 7, 8 different sequels. That's how franchises get rebooted when they go off the rails. That's why you get things like a Saw X. You know, fans have been clamoring for this for 7 sequels now, and now you get it. Well, if the fans just shut up every single time they had a bad experience, you don't get those things. And I feel like a lot of that gets lost in that conversation of this toxic positivity movement, where if you have to praise everything because somebody worked hard on it and this was somebody's baby, and it's not always the case.
Not always the case.
All right, let me see if we got a couple more super chats here real quick. Marcy, thoughts on what Rachel Ziegler said about Snow White? That's more relevant to what we were talking about in the culture war side of things. I think that was just...
What did she say even?
Well, she's the one who's cast as Snow White, and there was a couple of videos where she was on the red carpet, more or less kind of trashing the original from the perspective of Gen Z. Like,
I saw that. I thought maybe she said something new again. Yeah.
No, I don't believe so.
Oh,
they probably told her to shut the hell up.
She has.
She has?
But but not, so it's the flip. So they did. They're doing actors on actors and like a lot of these interviews of director.
Yeah.
So she did one with the girl that was Ariel in The Little Mermaid, and so then
Bailey?
yeah. And so then you kind of have 2 people that are doing the Disney princesses, both of them doing the gender swapped casting. So the internet went crazy. One of them kind of like didn't really lean into it. The other one leaned into it, with Rachel being the one that kind of like provoked them in addition to some of the stuff she said. And so then they did this interview, and this is pretty recent, and much more tame. Like, the PR people were like, Rachel, this is maybe we dial it back. Like,
Pump the brakes.
Right. Sure. 80 years have passed. Things are different. That's objectively true. Yeah. However, there's a way to say things that comes off like that makes everyone over 40 just go, oh, kids, what? Do you realize the world existed before you? And there's a way to say it that comes off like insightful. So there is new stuff, but it feels like the PR campaign of trying to reshape the image, like they realized stuff. But
gotcha.
Yeah.
Really obnoxious statements from these interviews from a year ago.
Yeah, and that was kind of my whole take on it. Was like, the things that she was saying is not like factually wrong, but it was all just conveyed in the worst way possible in a time where people are ultra sensitive to that type of thing. You have a movie that literally, I think it won the Oscar, did it not?
Which one?
The original Snow White.
Oh, I was like,
or was it just the first?
It's
first
feature-length
feature-length
animated film.
Yes, the first feature-length animated film, and it's beloved for a reason.
Yeah.
There's a reason why they're trying to do a new one, because there's an established fan base that adores that movie. You don't market it by trashing it,
right?
You know, and it just makes your movie feel like it's going to be agenda first, which is what people are very on the defense of nowadays. It's like, do you even care about Snow White, or is it just about telling everybody yet again about how creepy dudes are? And
it makes this whole deal about like, well, it's not about her love life. Like, there's actually nothing wrong with a princess finding love. That is actually a pretty normal part of life, and you made it weird. You made it weird, like what you just said, and like, maybe that guy's actually going to be cut out of the movie. Like, it's Hollywood. Like please stop. Like, she said that. She said like Prince Charming might be cut out of the movie by the time it comes out, and you're like, you're the star of the movie. You just joked about a person, an actor that is not as established as you, not starring in the movie, getting cut. Like, What are you doing?
If
Please stop.
If I could give any advice to people listening that care what I have to say, try not to listen to Hollywood actors at all and just go into movies ignorantly as them playing a character. It's so nice not knowing all the dumb shit because they're the same as us. Like, they have more money and more fame, but they say dumb shit just like you and I, and the mom on Facebook who posts the 17 paragraphs so that Facebook will stop monitoring what they're doing. It's all ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So thankfully I don't like pay attention to a lot of that stuff. I block it. Obviously it shows up in my feeds, but
I try my best not to. My dad's the person that I get into those conversations the most with, because he's very sensitive to that type of thing. Somebody in Hollywood says one thing that he doesn't like, and now they're on his shit list. And I'm just like, I'm like, dude. And my whole thing is like, and I've had times where that happens, where somebody says something that's just like, it rubs me the wrong way, and it's hard for me to ever see them the same way again. But I love movies and I love people's work, and so it's a hard balance to have. But I try my best to like just understand that they're not only they're humans and say dumb shit, but they live in a totally different reality than we do. They don't live in the real world. They live in this upper echelon ivory tower where
they live in their real world. You know, they live in their real world.
Yeah, they forget what it's like to be a normie, and I would rather just go watch the movie
in a bubble.
Yeah, yes. I don't even know what I don't know what a normie is anymore, though. I feel like there's all these segregated weirdo groups all over the place now. And to your question that we never really answered about, does internet conversation really affect movies now?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that was the question.
5 years ago, I would have said no, not really. It's an echo chamber. It's getting growing, but I do think it matters a lot now. What trends online, and I mean, you look at Bob Barbenheimer. Yeah, that was like entirely a digital campaign. I mean, that marketing was brilliant, and it was grassroots, I believe. And even if it wasn't, they sure played it off like it was.
We're going to have 3 of those manufactured by the studios in the next 2 or 3 years before they realize that that's not something you can force.
AI is trying to figure it all out right now. Like, what do we do? How do we process? Barbenheimer.
I mean, just from like anecdotally speaking, like when I interact with people, I feel like I have pretty regular conversations where people are like, no, I mean, I don't like to support Disney anymore because of this. And they had concentration camps next to where they shot Mulan. And I just like, I feel like I pretty regularly have those conversations.
Oh, I've never had that conversation, but that's.
Are you very overtly in church world? Do they drink?
Well, no, that's what I'm saying though. There's these different stories of conversation
it's show up to church and like, God's children are not for sale. Like when people like, no one's seeing Sounds of Freedom, is like, man, every time I show up at church on Sunday, someone's walking up to me like, finally someone's telling Hollywood what is. Finally, it's like, yeah, come on, guys. Come on. You were super normal a week ago, and now all of a sudden you've cracked the code of pedophilia because you watched a movie.
Didn't Liam Neeson take care of pedophilia a long time ago in Taken? Wasn't that one of the things? That was sex trafficking. I'm sorry. That was sex trafficking.
But it was that's in Europe.
Oh.
So he fixed it for Europe.
And Jim Caviezel is... Sound of Freedom was not in America, though. That was
it was America. It wasn't United States, but it was America's.
Oh yeah, but
which hemisphere?
I feel like those people are talking about the Hollywood Pizzagate, underground railroad system that goes to the Epstein Island, and that wasn't what Sound of Freedom was.
That is true. Yeah, it's the sequel.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
But
Freedom.
I feel like I do have conversations. That's the bubble in real world that I'm in. Mm-hmm. But then I think you see kind of the flip side to it of people on Twitter. Yeah. I feel like I'm in 2 very different worlds.
There's so many different worlds.
My
mom
Twitter
doesn't even know what Flash. She's like, is Flash part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or is that still going on? What's that? I'm like, no, Mom, doesn't matter.
It was always weird at my last job, because my last job was a lot of like backwoods Southern dudes who wore their politics on their sleeve. And so there was so many conversations about new movies where I didn't even need to hear 2 words out of them before I knew where the conversation was going. I remember this dude when the first Captain Marvel was coming out. This is the second, I believe, big budget superhero movie with a female lead ever. 2.
I mean, I guess Elektra
It's
doesn't mean anything to you. I
3.
guess Elektra,
Correction. Okay,
just
3.
Supergirl back in the I know.
Hasn't been many.
There's been like 5 total.
Yeah.
What about Tank Girl?
Tank Girl
in '95.
Yeah.
knew you
So
were gonna
I
bust
remember
that
I'm off in the corner working, and he's like, "Hey, did you see that trailer for that Captain Marvel thing?" And I was like, "Yeah, I saw it." And I just waited. I almost did like a 3, 2, 1 count. I was like 3, 2, 1, and he goes, "Just sick of all this woke shit." And I'm like,
Oh, God.
"There we go. There it is." And so yeah, you had all of those conversations at work all the time. And then my Twitter feed is the exact opposite. So yeah, I'm the same way, where it's just like I'm the middle of this like crazy yelling fest.
Unable to act like these people yelling at their own people, high-fiving each other, no interaction in the middle to find common ground, no like acknowledging. Yeah, I mean, there's Hollywood movies that are, obviously have an agenda, and there's some
Super
stuff like
pandering.
that. And yeah, there's obviously some pandering and some goofiness, but also not every single movie with a woman, black dude, or not every single movie is
And
because of like
That's when
normal conversations.
That's when I get
Nope.
I get so pissed off whenever you get a movie that's so blatant with it too, because it's just like
I know.
they were starting to quiet down, and then you had to do this. You had to have Ellen Burstyn say that the patriarchy kept her out of the fucking room. Like you just had to throw that in there to
Like-
fire everybody up for the next 8 weeks.
And that's like there are things that are totally valid. Like you're literally watching The Exorcist movie, and the movie pauses. It pauses to have her throw the 2 dudes that died for her daughter under the bus as symbols of the patriarchy, and just the craziest like, wait, she really just said that. It doesn't make any sense. It was so dangerous they died. Like, she just like says this line, then it's like, you literally just affirmed. Yes, there are absolutely legitimate, well, that was woke. There are legitimate things because you just did this incredibly stupid line.
Yeah, well, yeah, I felt
So
like
insane.
a couple years ago on Netflix, I was like, is there a mandate where every show or movie has to have a gay character? Because it seemed like every single thing we watched, like, okay, gay character. This one's got like 4 gay people in this small little group. It was just crazy. I was like, okay, I don't have a problem with it at all, but I could so see the boxes being checked on all of this. It's like, all right, we have to have a person of color there. We have to have a gay guy there. We have to have this there. Everybody's got to be represented. And it becomes more than just, is this movie even a movie anymore? Are we telling a real story, or is it just pandering and trying to like make a point or a statement? It just feels so manufactured and not sincere at all.
You feel it when it's happening, because you'll watch some other movie that also has a gay character, whatever the thing is, and you don't stop to think about it for a second because they're just a character in the movie,
right?
Or it does have some point, but it's told in an authentic way, as opposed to there's those times where it's just like pausing to like just point at it.
Well, the ultimate example of that to me was Star Trek Beyond. Do you remember how big of a deal they made it that they were turning John Cho's character gay? That was all they talked about with that movie for like 3 months before it came out, and it's 3 seconds of the movie.
So stupid.
Like it's something where like they're like, see, it's confirming that Sulu's always been gay, which is kind of this in joke because of George Takei and all that. So there was all this like nuance to the whole thing that just caused people to erupt with craziness.
So brave.
But I remember seeing the movie, and like it's literally just they have the cold open of the movie with this action sequence, and then they dock, and then Kirk walks out and looks off in the distance, and John Cho kisses a dude, and they walk away. And then it's never brought up again. And it's like, and there's even a point where John Cho's husband is on the area that is in peril because of the villain. And it's like, you didn't even use that to like build out some kind of a human motivation for why John Cho is so much more like dedicated to this and why he's emotionally compromised. Like nothing. You had that. And then you have times where Hollywood, like this is where Hollywood will piss me off, to where they lecture everybody like, you need to have this, you need to accept this, but then they'll have a movie like the Dumbledore movie that came out last year, where
sucked.
they relegate the entire commentary of that to one scene that they conveniently cut out so they can put on China.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. What's Lightyear does this, Quantum Mania, and then they cut it for the rest of the world. And they, especially when they're like, we've got the first confirmed gay couple in Lightyear, but only if you see it in the West. Right? What are you doing?
And
what on earth are you doing?
And this is a crazy idea, but maybe have your gay characters have your gay characters in movies, but don't make that their thing. Like, it doesn't have to be, I am a gay character. That's my entire personality as far as this movie's concerned, because I'm only going to be here for one stock moment where they say, yeah, that's so-and-so. It's the boyfriend of so-and-so. And that's it. We're done. We're not in the movie anymore.
That's something that they've been doing a lot with Chucky. Like the first season of Chucky, the main character is a kid who's kind of discovering his homosexuality, and they do a decent enough job with it in the first season. It's all, the whole season's about him and this little crush he has on this other kid, and them kind of acknowledging each other. Like they actually do something with it. Right. Season 2, it's this weird like manufactured drama between them, and season 3 so far has just been two gay dudes trying to fuck every single time somebody is out of the room. And that's all they're doing with them. And I'm just like, guys, like character development, story, plot, something. Like we're 3 seasons in. We know these guys are gay. Like that you're not doing anything with them besides just reminding us it's okay, guys. We got gay characters here. And it's like I would be pissed off if I was a gay guy and that was my representation in this show, is just like that. And like
I don't like heterosexual sex scenes in movies or shows either. So it's like all uncomfortable. Why do you force it? They actually did a survey recently. I think Netflix or someone did it, and it was like 80% of people don't like to see that in movies. You just imply it. And I know it's miserable for the actors too, because they have to wear all these weird, like, see-through clothes, and they have to put pillows between them. And it's like, we can just do this in a better way, I think, than constantly having to force it on people. I remember the best example was growing up. I would watch a lot of stupid Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. I know that's weird to say because all of his movies are brilliant. All of his movies are brilliant. Yes, thank you.
That question, what movie do you never get tired of it from earlier? Bloodsport.
I love Bloodsport, man. I love Bloodsport. Hard Target, I'm a big fan of that one. Double Team, not so much. That's the one with Dennis Rodman, right? Is that Double Team?
Yes.
Anyway, I'd watch these movies with my dad, and it was like wash, rinse, repeat. Jean-Claude goes out, kicks a bunch of people's asses, finds the hot chick in the town, and they go back for a soft core banging. And every time that happens, like, this is so awkward. I'm sitting here with my dad. I'm like 13 or 14 years old. Like, we could get rid of this portion of the film. It'd be fine.
It's in Hard Target. They had one filmed for the movie that they deleted it, where they're like, come on now. She's searching for her homeless dad that was forced by rich people to be hunted, and then they paused in the middle of it right before it goes into action for them to hook up, and right after like we just discovered the tags, your dad was actually murdered.
We got time.
Let me comfort you. and they went, maybe this doesn't make any sense. This is in poor taste.
Do they have two versions? Do they have like the no penetration edition, or is it just one and done?
The Snyder cut.
The Snyder cut.
I laughed. I think it was 2 days ago. I saw an article. I'm pretty sure it was Jennifer Aniston, I guess, for some show that she's on right now. I haven't seen it, but it was talking about how she was introduced to this new thing called the intimacy coordinator, to where she had a sex scene, and they're like, "Do you need the intimacy coordinator?" And she's like, "What the hell is that?" Oh, it's the guy that comes up and asks mid-sex scene if you're okay, if you're comfortable. And she's like, I've been doing this for 40 years. Get the fuck out of here. Like, that just made me laugh, like how things have changed from, movies of the 80s where it's just like borderline softcore porn in the middle of an action movie. And nowadays it's just like, do you give consent for him to touch your ass while the camera's on?
I think it was Sean Bean in an interview was talking about these intimacy coordinators, and he goes, well, it kind of takes the spontaneity out of the performance. Just imagine 60-year-old man and the internet Twitter reading, creepy Sean Bean wants spontaneity during sex scenes while filming movies. Sounds like he just wants to grab girls.
That was not in the script.
Sean's begging to do the movie with you. He wants to do the picture, but no intimacy coordinators. That's his request. I'm sorry. I don't know why. He's a weird dude.
Oh, man. Intimacy coordinators. I mean, that would have been Quentin Tarantino's worst nightmare in From Dusk Till Dawn. Like, no, you can't stick her whole foot in your mouth, Quentin.
I was going to say,
delete
does
that
the intimacy
page.
coordinator cover the feet too, or is that a separate foot coordinator?
Oh, man. All right. We got, let's see. Okay. What's the biggest turn of opinion you have had on a movie, both from really disliking to liking it and vice versa? Hope to meet you all at a con one day. Well, stay tuned. We might have some words about that very soon. For me, the only one that I can...
This is bait for me to say I love Godzilla Minus One.
Yes, actually, I watched it with my eyes open this time. The only one that I ever really go to is the Evil Dead movie from, was it 2015, 2014? I can't remember, but the Fede Alvarez one. I can't call it a remake because everybody would be like, it's not a remake. The car was in it. But that one, I saw it in theaters and I really didn't like it. I don't know if I was in a bad mood or if I just wasn't ready for that type of movie. I really don't know, but I didn't like it at all. 2, maybe 3 years pass. I watch it again and I'm like, this is fucking awesome. What was wrong with me? And I love that movie now. It's one of my favorite horror movies of all time.
Really?
That's the only that's okay. The only thing that I can ever think of that I had that big of a shift with.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I ever have any good answers on questions like this.
Mm-hmm.
People ask this, of course, all the time. Like, what was a movie you used to love and now you hate? What's a movie you grew up with? And like maybe one that kind of comes to mind would be like Batman '89, which was so formative to me, but I don't think is actually that great of a movie. But like, I'm not going negative on it.
Right.
Yeah.
I see it now and I go, this is really weird the way that this story is told. And Prince soundtrack in a Batman movie, that's weird.
You agree. Tim Burton agrees with you. I believe he doesn't really like the first one. That's why Returns is quite a bit different. I go with Castaway. I didn't really care for Castaway when I saw it in theaters. I was a lot younger, and I recently watched it, I think about a year back with my son, and I thought it was fantastic. The ending always kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but I think maybe just experience now, being older, I really kind of appreciated that his life's an open journey now, and I dug it a lot.
All right. I laugh when people try to use Rotten Tomatoes scores as the determining factor of a movie's worth. Critics hate Friday the 13th, yet it's one of the most popular horror franchises of all time. It's okay to like movies with low Rotten Tomatoes scores.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm on Rotten Tomatoes. I have never once used Rotten Tomatoes to determine whether I see a movie or like a movie. It's. I think that there is a useful application of those numbers, but it's very rarely used that way. And the majority of people that talk Rotten Tomatoes don't even completely understand how those numbers work. Like they see a movie with a 60% and they view that as like a failing test grade. Yeah, and it's like or they view 100% and they're like, it's
critics
the greatest
hated
movie
this
ever.
Movie 60%.
Yeah, and it's like 100% of critics liked it, but 90% of them gave it 3 out of 5. Like there's all these little nuances.
I think people think that we give it a percentage when they don't realize it's like a yes or no. There's
still people that think Rotten Tomatoes is one dude.
Mr. Tomato.
Yeah, I put out a short explaining how Rotten Tomatoes works. And, there's a percentage of comments that were like, people like, doesn't everybody know this? And then there was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments like, oh, I had no idea. Well, this is really confusing. If it's so confusing, you need a video to explain it. Maybe the system is too complicated and they need something easier.
Yeah.
What is easier than the percentage of critics that recommend it? There's there's not a system more basic than this.
I would argue it's too basic. I would argue it's too basic. It'd be nice if there was maybe a middle tomato that's kind of ripe or something.
Right.
Because that's where a lot of movies would end up.
Yeah, for sure.
But to Friday the 13th, I almost feel like those actually represent what the score actually means.
Yes.
Like you think about Friday the 13th movies, 16% of moviegoers think that these are incredible, most celebrated thing, but most average person, it's like, oh, it's all the same thing.
Yeah.
That's true. That's a fair criticism. That's a fair observation. Most people kind of perceive like they like one of them. They like have like a little bit of that experience, but for the most like people, that's actually not a bad score. That's But if you're in the 16%, there's nothing wrong with that. You liked the movie, cool. Pretty much every Punisher movie ever put out has a Rotten Tomatoes score of 27%. It's like really specific, and they all have 27%. I like all those movies. Yeah. I get why all of you think that they're like very basic or whatever. I get it. I like them.
Yeah, that just happened with me. I watched the Boys in the Boat, and I freaking dug it. I thought it was a great throwback to 90s inspirational flicks. I miss that. They don't do that very much anymore in Hollywood. And I went on Rotten Tomatoes to put my score in, and I saw it was sitting rotten at 44%. And not a ton of reviews out yet for it, but I was a little bummed. Like, oh, man, I thought I was going to be in agreement with a lot of people, but no. I only like Rotten Tomatoes for kind of just gauging where other critics are at, and that's pretty much it.
Have you ever submitted a score trying to push a movie over?
No. Have you?
Yeah, I saw. Well, I think actually I might have done it with tried to do it with Hard Target.
Actually, before you say it, Sean, before you say it, I did the opposite once, and that was for Last Jedi, which has been reviewed like years ago because it's stupidly high still. And so I put my Rotten in on that
just to try
to nudge it down a little bit more. Yep.
So I've tried to look up movies that I really enjoy that are at 59%. So I tried to push Taken over because it's at 59%.
What? That's Rotten?
Yeah.
What?
It kind of makes sense in a sense that like if you're just a critic before it became this phenom that redefined Liam Neeson's career, it's kind of just this very, very straightforward generic action thriller. God. But it's also like just such the definitive one in another sense. It's so good.
32%? It's at 32%.
Which one? What?
Taken is at 32%. Am I seeing this right? Oh wait, this is a different Taken. There's a TV series.
Yeah, it's like no, it should be at 59%. I tried to because I can like submit my thoughts from my rankings, and I was like, oh, there's so many movies. What have I talked about in a ranking that's at 59%? And I tried to push I like even did a screenshot. I was gonna like use it for shameless self promotion. Like I'm doing the Lord's work. I got Taken fresh. I will be the one, and it didn't work.
It did. It's fresh.
Well, then I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna lie and claim that worked.
Dude, it's fresh.
What is it?
60%.
Yes, I've got screen caps of this somewhere.
There we
60%.
Go.
I was gonna put mine in.
I did this.
Yeah, you did it. I was gonna try to help you.
Action fans around the world, you can thank me by subscribing.
We did it.
Recall all of the Blu-rays and now reprint them with the fresh tomato.
Where's the Taken fandom? Get them out. Get them out on Twitter.
So I have two examples of this. One was accidental. One was absolutely on purpose. So whenever it was actually last year at Fantastic Fest when I was sitting in Sean's kitchen after I had edited my Terrifier 2 review, which I did like. I'm not really a fan of the first one. The first one I went negative on. I have like 2.75, something like that. So I was submitting my review for Terrifier 2 because I was one of like 10 reviews. And that one was already getting a pretty good score. And then since I had just reviewed Terrifier the week before I flew out to Texas, I was like, oh, well, I'll go ahead and submit my review for the original Terrifier 2. And after being on a high and like, hey, I'm a Terrifier fan now. These guys are great. I want to be, friends with all of them. I submit my review for Terrifier and I drop it from 60 to 59. And I was like, oh, whoops. Sorry, guys. The other one was it was within the first week that I was verified on Rotten Tomatoes, and somebody in our space was absolutely not using this Rotten Tomatoes thing the way that it should be. And it was like, don't worry, guys, like I'm gonna save it was an example of just a terrible movie that they like and they are always a champion of. And it's like, all right, guys, I'm gonna use my Rotten Tomatoes accreditation for this. And so they're like, I posted my review and now this movie went up from 39 to 40. And so I went and I posted my negative review to drop it back down to 39. It was a legitimate negative review. It wasn't like I went negative just to be a dick. It would have been that score regardless. But that was a little small petty moment of satisfaction where I was just like, and there. But yeah, those are my two stories.
Nice.
Just got home from work. Much love to y'all. If Hollywood can keep giving people with original ideas more attention, there's still hope for us all. Well, see, this is one that's I always have a big, hefty debate with. So there's always, for years, has been kind of this this argument that Hollywood is out of ideas and Hollywood doesn't do anything original anymore. And my opinion has always been Hollywood does more original ideas now more than ever, but it's just all of the sequels, reboots, cinematic universe stuff that most people acknowledge and go and see. And so usually the person that tells you that, you ask what the last 3 movies they saw in theaters were, and it's like, oh, the Marvels, the Flash, and Mission Impossible. And it's like, okay, well, go ahead.
Like how people say, Sean, all you do is review Marvel movies and rank Marvel movies. It's like, well, that's because you didn't click on all of these other videos where I covered other things. There's a lot more coming out than that. It's all you're watching. It's all you're paying attention to.
YouTube's
not
feeding
me.
them. Yeah, YouTube's giving them those videos.
Way algorithms work. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why like Fantastic Fest is cool, because then you'll have like 25 reviews of very much not the mainstream thing, with the exception of 2 or 3 movies. But yeah. So yeah, I mean, you always need to have original ideas. Most of the time they fund the original ideas with the money they make from the blockbusters, just not in 2023. Stuckman does not do regular reviews anymore. He does, but just not negative reviews. A movie is going to be good if it has a good story and character arc. If it has a $300 million or $25,000 budget, you have good story and characters. You can forgive a lot of other flaws. I mean, yeah, I'm a story and character person first. Those are always the most important thing. But you can absolutely still have a terrible movie that has a good story and characters. I watched, it wasn't terrible, but like I watched a movie last night and I told my wife about it and I said, it was interesting because the story, the concept was very cool, but the things surrounding it in the movie were not very good. And so it's one of those things where it's like somebody should remake those movies where it was a cool concept that they just kind of didn't do all that good, and now learn from those mistakes. And the last one, the Disney Nerd. I'm trying to watch as many 2023 movies that I can before the year ends. This week I checked out The Burial, Chicken Run 2, Family Switch, Expendables 4, and most recently Killers of the Flower Moon.
Hey, I watched Expendables 4 with Cody. That was a good one.
We did.
That movie was
loved it.
Awful. God, it was so bad.
We bailed on the
weirdest
night
ways
of the
possible. Yeah, we left a film festival where we could have been at the world premiere of a very high class trauma film to see Expendables 4.
Yes.
As soon as possible.
Oh.
We use our time wisely.
Win for everyone. Yeah.
I lucked out too because I had a throbbing headache in between movie 1 and movie 2 that night, and so we had to make like a pit stop at CVS so I can get some aspirin. And luckily, my headache went away before Expendables 4 started. Otherwise, it would have been a rough experience.
I was gonna say it came back shortly after, didn't it?
Ooh, man, yeah, that was interesting. All right, guys, we've been going for 2 hours and 36 minutes. Was there anything else you guys want to talk about in regards to worries about the movie industry? I mean, we covered theater attendance. We covered a little bit of culture wars. We covered physical media dying out. We talked about the shift in how critics are viewed. Pretty much a lot of different spectrums of ways that things have certainly changed for being a movie fan and how things seem to be switching up. Was there anything that we missed that you could think of?
I think the only one thing that bummed me out, where I died a little inside, was when Disney purchased Fox years ago.
Yeah.
I just was so sad that a lot of great properties were going to be shelved or put in that Disney vault and probably wouldn't see the light of day for many years. Or what I wasn't expecting at the time is that Disney would take those properties and just come up with really bad Disney Plus films like
Home Sweet Home Alone,
Hocus Pocus 2, Home Sweet Home Alone, Disenchanted, just a lot of really bottom of the barrel, straight to DVD kind of crap. But now it's straight to Disney Plus crap.
Yeah,
and,
so that's something that could be interesting to kind of close on, as far as like the amount of creativity being stifled into just these big conglomerates. So like, there's even been this narrative that's been floating around for a while that Apple might even be buying Disney. And so at some point, are we going to end up with like 2 battling movie studios that own everything?
Probably. Yeah,
We've
probably.
got the Discovery, HBO, and they're going to own Paramount and all that. And then you're going to have Disney and Apple and Fox. And it's just going to be
Elon Musk
Marvel and
buys it,
DC.
rebrands it X.
X Studios.
X plus, X minus.
Go fuck yourself productions.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a bummer because there's just a lot of good Fox property. You know, kind of like how you say you went to Die Hard and had a blast. I did too. It was so fun seeing that on the big screen. I really was sad I missed Jurassic Park when it was re-released into theaters because I did see that in theaters when I was a kid, but it would have been good to kind of have those feels again. And now a lot of those properties, not Jurassic Park, but you know, Die Hard and Predator and Alien, those are all somewhere in Disney's labs being, you know, worked on, and they got potions and algorithms going, and we'll see what they come up with. But I don't have high hopes.
X Studios. Be careful how you Google that.
It's true.
No shit.
Dice
Careful how you type
clutch.
in x.com even.
Yeah. I've never typed that in. Literally never. Like, I'm sorry. X is never going to happen.
No.
It's never going to happen.
Stop trying to make fetch a thing, Elon.
Yeah, I'm with you. I remember like the only exciting piece of it was like, oh, the X-Men are going to join the MCU. And this is back when we were all like really excited about the MCU. And it's been years and we've seen one mutant. Well, I guess technically two. One was in a multiverse.
Spoiler.
Yeah. I hope that we reach this point with Disney pumping the brakes and having the power shift back over to certain people. And now they're talking about Blade's going to be rated R and Daredevil's going to be, you know, mature. And we've got the Alien movie coming out next year that everybody says is really good that has seen it. And I hope we start to get this. Don't even brand it under Disney. Just keep it Fox. I hope that this Fox Studios or something keeps going and we get things like that. And it's
they call
not
it
just,
20. Isn't it 20th Century Studios? Isn't that
something like that? But I hope that keeps going the way that Fox always was.
Yeah.
And I hope it's not just, like you said, stuck in the vault until they can figure out how to familyize it, because that's great for Disney stuff. Disney stuff and adult stuff don't mix well. They just don't.
No. Well, except for Deadpool. We'll see how Deadpool turns out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea. All right. Well, Sean's getting ready to pass out. I can see the
what are you talking about? I'm getting my second wind. I'm
Diet Cokes are stacked up over there.
The tower stopped at 4. We're in trouble. All right. So, Adam, anything coming out on your channel here that you want to promote, like coming out in the next week or so? Maybe your lists or anything like that?
Yeah, well, you know, 'tis the season, so I put out a Frosty the Snowman movie roast, or presentation roast, I guess. It's not really a movie. So tomorrow or Monday, I'll have a roast for Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. It's really fun.
I watched those when I was a kid. How dare you crap on my childhood? Have you no soul, sir? Have you no soul?
It's really fun watching these movies again. They are insane. The people are garbage in them, like especially Rudolph. They are just horrible people. Even Santa's a prick. So these are fun. Obviously, you know, they're light, silly roasts, and I do pay compliments at the end usually because Rudolph is a wonderful looking film with good music. But yeah, some of the stuff we grew up with is a little questionable in the writing department. And then I have reviews and live streams and, you know, all the same kind of shit you guys do over here, I think, for the most part. So movies.
There you go. Hopefully no worst of list.
There will be a worst of
Nancy.
list. There absolutely will be a worst
you
of list.
would do a worst of the year list now, wouldn't
It's
you?
just going to be
Godzilla Minus One.
10 times.
1 through 10.
Godzilla Minus One, minus
Oh,
two,
wait.
minus 3.
And then number 10 is, or whatever the last one he says, The Boy and the Huron. So you're just destroying Japanese culture. How dare you, sir?
I hate Japanese culture. What can I say? Yeah.
Oh, wow.
On that note.
Yep. On that note, Uncle Sean, what do we got coming down the pipe?
Wow.
Coming down the chimney.
Might be going to bed soon. That's the next thing for me. But when I wake up, end of the year list, of course, but ranking all of the DCEU stuff one final time, which is wild to think about. Those have been a mainstay of my channel pretty much as long as I've had it. Batman v Superman came out right before my channel started, so I've been talking about these ones, and it's coming to an end.
Wow.
So, yeah, hopefully in the very near future, I have some announcements about my next meetup con stuffy things in the very near future.
There you go. As far as me, I mean, December's been a weird month so far. There hasn't really been much to talk about, but we got Rebel Moon coming at some point. I'm hoping to get a screener. We'll see if that happens. If nothing else, you'll get that review on like Thursday or Friday of that week.
All three of us
Aquaman.
will review that. All three review. We're all going to prop up that Rotten Tomatoes score, Snyder fans.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
doing
There
my
you go.
part.
Safe with us.
There you go. Aquaman 2, just like Sean said, I'll have Aquaman 2 review. I'll rank the DCEU one final time. I'm hoping to get one final live stream with Durbin, who has not really been doing YouTube, but we used to do the State of the DCEU live streams after every release.
Doing YouTube for himself.
There you go. Yes.
He got hired by the fandom for the show he was covering.
I know.
Which is
living the
wild.
Dream. So I'm hoping that me and him will be able to do something as kind of like a little closeout celebration kind of thing, a eulogy, if you will, for the DCEU. I also would like to do like a tier list where I rank Marvel and DC movies, like one of those big monstrous ones that I've seen people do that has like 60 movies on it. The tier lists are always easier to tackle that many. Beyond that, then yeah, by the end of this month and the beginning of January is when you start getting all the end of the year stuff. So best, worst, most disappointing, most surprising, and just like last year, I'll do the ranking all 120, however many movies I end up with by the end of the year, and that'll be a big fat video. So look forward to that, guys. Beyond all of that, thank you for watching. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the conversations that we've had. It kind of was just more free form tonight, just three dudes hanging out, bitching about movies, like we love to do. It's going to be like our Hunger Games thing. All right, everybody. Thank you for watching. We will see you next time, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Bye-bye.
Wakanda forever. Did it not end? What the hell?